proposal wakuje nyumbani. Chama kimekuja, kujeni nyumbani. Senator wetu pia mimi naambia chama sasa kimekuja.
As schools are expected to reopen next week for the second time, head teachers are concerned that lack of funds will make their work harder. High school teachers have complained that the money distributed last time did not include the requirements of the Form 1 students. According to Kahi Indimuli, chairperson of the Secondary School Association, the schools were required to use funds allocated to other students. The government distributes the funds every time. The first time received 50%, the second time 30%, and the third 20%. First time received 17.47 billion shillings. 2.62 billion shillings were allocated to primary schools, while 14.85 billion shillings were allocated to secondary schools. Teachers have complained that the money is not enough and that many schools will suffer come second term, especially considering that some parents have not paid school fees. To sports, that Arsenal have reportedly put Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Oli Watkins on the top of their list of wanted strikers. Everton forward Calvert-Lewin and Aston Villa striker Watkins are two of the names Arsenal are targeting as they prepare for the departure of Alexander Lacazette. Lacazette is believed to be on his way out of Arsenal as he has less than a year left on his contract. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
Forgiveness is always conditional. Even before God, there's nothing like unconditional forgiveness.
Government doesn't pay you pension until you retire. In fact, they have no money for you. The day you retire, they look for it.
This country is punishing many young people. These young people are more susceptible to be deceived, to be taken advantage of, and they're more susceptible to be bought off.
Let us also talk about where we want our country to go. You know, we are a population of very young people.
We're in a state of capture. The judiciary is under duress. Parliament is in the pocket of the executive. You don't sit and wait for the regime to topple itself. It will never do so.
By the way, let me tell you, these guys are so persuasive. I'm telling you, they can persuade you to sell your grandmother. I'm telling you, they can sell sand in the desert.
Cece, has anybody on this program said to you as a guest, saying, "Oh, shut up, we don't want to be told what to do"? Has anybody that kind of... Has anybody been
I will not listen.
A bit of advice? Because you're working on the premise that we should all pay heed to these proverbs. It's a very suspect notion.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. SpiceFM.
It's starting to build up on Mombasa Road. We're right in the middle of the week and it looks like traffic is not so bad this Wednesday morning. Getting into the CBD should not be difficult at all. Should be really easy, especially using the Southern Bypass. Langata Road also. If you want to get off Langata Road in about 2 minutes, now is the time to do so because there's no traffic whatsoever there. It's building up on the Thika Superhighway, however, but not too bad. Still, things are just picking up, so you can get in and out without too much of an issue. Other parts of the city, all free and green, and you can pass through without too much of a problem at all. We know that's going to change though, and we're going to be ready for it. Let us know where you might be stuck this morning as it ticks by on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127. Let's keep things moving this Wednesday morning.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning. How are you doing? Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation this lovely Wednesday morning, the 6th day of October 2021. Ndu Okoh, Good morning.
Good morning, Eric Latiff.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
It's good to see you.
It's good to be seen.
Very good.
How are you doing?
I'm very well.
Karibu sana.
I do. I day.
I'm glad that you do day.
Siti Muga.
Yes.
Habari ya leo.
Mzuri sana. Na yako je?
Salama kabisa.
We iko mzima?
Kabisa.
Well done.
Yes.
Hata mimi iko mzima.
Siti.
What is it?
The way they talk, they sweet my belly, I beg.
Well done. Welcome. Thank you. That is now full Kenyan greeting.
Kenyan greeting.
Well done.
Okay, I understand.
Welcome.
Okay. Welcome, well done.
Then thank you.
Okay. Sawa.
Happy birthday.
Wow, okay. It's okay.
Everything, all of them combined. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, everybody. Today, as we continue celebrating the young women who are making big moves in public service, we'll be hosting Dr. Mercy Mwangangi, the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Health. Now, she's an expert on health matters, especially when it comes to the economics of health. So she'll be here to tell us, let's talk about this universal health coverage, the plan, what's being done so far, and what it needs to succeed. What are the various cogs that need to be moving this particular big giant gear of the universal health coverage? That is a conversation that we'll be having with Dr. Mercy Mwangangi at 7 a.m. this morning. Keep it right here. 8 and 9, we'll have more conversations. There's a lot that's happening in the country. So that, as well, is something to look forward to. In the meantime, COVID-19.
Yes. Okay. So we're looking at still 5.8 million that we want vaccinated by the 20th of October.
Yes.
Today is what day?
Today is the 6th.
The 6th of October. We have 14 days, exactly 2 weeks to go to be able to get this done.
Yes.
So far, 3 million, I beg your pardon. We'll get it. 3,935,671 people have been vaccinated. Of those, only 2.9 million have received their first dose. So, of that number of 3.9 million, just 1 million are completely vaccinated. Right?
1 million.
1 million are completely. That means you've gotten your first and second dose. 2.98 million have only received their first dose.
So you're talking about 3.98?
Yes, complete.
When was Dr. Ahwale in the studio again, you guys?
He was here last week, Thursday.
It was Thursday? On Thursday, he told us that he had checked that morning and there was 3.8 million people who had received a shot of COVID-19.
Yes.
3.8 million doses administered.
Yes.
Today it's
3.935 million. So
about 100,000.
In the last 1 week, just over 100,000 people have been vaccinated.
Jesus.
We're not doing very well if the target is 2 million people in the next 14 days.
Yeah.
Yes.
We need to call him and ask him.
Maybe there's a hitch somewhere.
Yeah, what do you want? What do you need from us?
How can we help?
You need more shots in the arm?
Pun intended. So,
okay.
We're looking at 3.5% of the population having been vaccinated so far, right? Yesterday, 189 people were tested positive for COVID-19 from a sample size of 6,367. There's a positivity rate of 3.0, rising slightly from the 2.7 that we saw the day before. 9 deaths having been recorded, 1 happening yesterday, and 8 of them have been collected from around the country over the last 30 days. So there are many things that are on the burner at the same time, kind of just percolating. Vaccines happening over here, some testing happening over here, still people in hospital and being treated, etc. The deaths continuing to happen. So it just is really evident right now that, life is going on while COVID is just kind of...
It's going on.
Going on. Okay? Again, I guess the call cannot be understated that come out and get vaccinated. Of the vaccines that have been received in the country so far, there's still about 3 million that have not been used. Come out, get vaccinated. Listen, hear the call. Get this first line of defense against COVID-19. We can't say that enough. A good vaccine is an available vaccine, and there are 3 million available right now. The country is also doing all that it can to have more and more coming into the country. We talked about the special syringes that were needed to be able to administer the Pfizer vaccine. Those are supposed to be in the country this week.
I saw a story yesterday, like they'd arrived.
They'd arrived, yes. So then they will be able to start delivering or administering those now with this special syringe. After, remember, it's not just they come and then you begin to administer. Those who are administering need some training to be able to, use them right.
Remember, Dr. Alwale mentioned that they had actually been, when the vaccine first arrived, they also came with some syringes. So they have familiarized our healthcare workers with these syringes. Yes. So it's not that they haven't.
You know the thing about that story, yeah? You're talking about expanding the health facilities, right?
Yes.
So those that have received the training are in some specific health facilities. So there are some healthcare workers who have received the training, but not all. How many have received the training? How many are required to do this work? Also, remember, Pfizer requires some serious cold chain system.
Minus 70 degrees.
So maybe Pfizer is not going to be taken everywhere, but the areas that have been mapped that this is where Pfizer is going to be distributed, have all those healthcare workers been trained on how to use this particular
I doubt if
syringe?
they've all been trained.
That's the thing.
I doubt
So the trainers of trainers may have had the training, but the trainers of trainers have not trained the trainees of the trainers of trainers, which is now that's where the issues would be. Anyway, okay. Keep it right here for more conversations. It is 16 minutes after 6. We are live streaming the show, SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. People are awake from all over the world, and we see you. Keep saying hello. Let's say hello to you and catch up in about a minute and a half after we take a look at the weather forecast for the country and the world. A very good morning to you.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
The opportunities are here. Project X, the biggest youth empowerment project in Africa for young creatives, is here. Are you a model, a fashion designer, or a performing artist? Then this is the opportunity you have been waiting for. Register now for the opportunity of a lifetime by following @Opportunities Are Here on Instagram and The Opportunities Are Here on Facebook for more information and the registration link. Online selections begin on the 12th of October and registration closes on the 22nd of October. The Opportunities Are Here is a project by the Ethical Fashion Initiative in partnership with the European Union. Project X is co-produced by KTN Home and Vibes Radio.
We're looking at slightly cloudy conditions in Nairobi today, coming out to clear at 13, highs of 27 and lows of 13, and cloudy through the day. It's mostly cloudy in Nakuru at 15, highs of 26. 12 will be the low in Nyeri, where it's clear currently, going to highs of 25. And in Eldoret, clear conditions at 14, highs of 24 and lows of 13. In Mombasa this morning, 23 degrees and sunny conditions, highs of 30. And in Malindi, it will be sunny through the day at 25, currently going to highs of 30. Kisumu was mostly cloudy at 20, highs of 29. And in Kakamega, it's cloudy at 17, highs of 28 and lows of 15. In Kampala, mostly clear conditions at 18, highs of 27 today. And we're looking at clear conditions in sunny conditions in Dar Dar es Salaam at 22, highs of 31. Johannesburg is clear at 13, highs of 24. 30 will be the high in a rainy Lagos this morning at 26, coming down to lows of 24. And it's clear in Kinshasa at 22, highs of 33, back down to lows of 22. Out east in Beijing, temperatures continue to fall this morning at 13 degrees going into early afternoon there. Highs of 14 and lows of 7. Paris is mostly clear at 10, highs of 17 and lows of 8. While in London, it's 11 degrees and clear, highs of 17 and lows of 10. New York, still sleepy at 18 degrees. It's cloudy too. Coming into Wednesday, we'll see highs of 19 and lows of 16.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Very good morning. Who's online?
Okay, Jonathan Yinya says in every day, and he's tuned in from Kisumu. Mohammed Yusuf is saying, CT, you look stylish.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. Wa Ebubere Mumias Nikondani Ampango Hadu Mwisho. Good to have you in. Abdikadir Abdallah is tuned in as well from Komarok. Jerry Rawlings tuned in from Eldoret. And Charity says, hello from Nakuru, Narumoro. Narumoro, where's Narumoro?
It's in Laikipia County.
It's in Laikipia County. Okay. Simon Villa says, good morning from Olekasasi. Okay. Abutwata says good morning, and Abraham Lukitoro is tuned in as well. Beta Ashley says good morning, and Kevin Kipsang is tuned in from Nanyuki, streaming from Terego District. That's where Anguyo Martin is this morning. Ben Apudo says tuned in this morning. You've traveled up country. You're listening in from Mugunja. All right. Alex King is tuned in as well, stateside. San Kibet and Samuel Obonna. Samuel is in Germany. And Kyo Kimingi Wagendo is tuned in from Gitiha in Githunguri. Collins Capsat tuned in this morning from Eldoret. Stanley says, good morning from Huisero. And he's saying stories of friendly crocodiles at the Mishuki Park. Lions, buffalo in Mokoe are scary. Javan Malindi is where he's tuned in from this morning. And Mary Kimeo is in Naivasha. Everybody else, we see you guys. Thanks for joining us this morning. Asante.
Karibuni sana, everybody. So that place called Narumoro. What did they say? Narumoro.
Narumoro.
Narumoru, actually.
Narumoru.
Narumoru. Yes. Okay. But the people around there will call it Narumoro. Narumoro is on the way to Nanyuki. Okay. See this place that you've been wanting to go?
Yeah, I want to go.
Right. So when you go to Nanyuki, you'll see Narumoru. Bwana Muga.
Yes.
Today's proverb.
Yes. Today's proverb. This is an African proverb. A stranger. Now, where did my proverb go to? Okay.
Your estranged proverb.
Yeah, my estranged proverb. This is what happens when you start trying to read proverbs. But I know it offhand anyway. A stranger does not skin a goat that is at the chief's yard as a fine. Let me repeat it. A stranger does not skin a goat in a chief's yard that is offered as a fine. Committed an offense.
Fine was bring goat.
Goat.
You who doesn't know
someone
the goat,
else.
Somebody else
cannot
comes
come there
and just try to take that goat and skin it.
Yes.
Because the purpose of the goat was not for eating.
Yes.
Abi.
Yeah, it was for a fine.
Yeah.
Not only was it for a fine, stranger, how on earth? What?
You just walk in and just be behaving
Find a
anyhow.
goat in the chief's camp and then
Kill it,
just...
because you have to kill it first and then skin it.
Yes.
Yes.
Surely. Adabu. Kuwa na adabu. That's a whole message, as I see there. Thank you very much. So let's take a look at the newspaper headlines, and as we do that, get yourself onto the e-paper. The Standard e-paper is now available to you at an unbeatable price of 20 shillings daily access to premium content on standardmedia.co.ke. You also get access to free Sudoku daily. Get access to crossword puzzles daily. You get access to 10 days of free access to Standard Archives. You want to get Standard Archives, this is what you actually do. All right. Okay. Oh, Gitsa Noromoro is in Nyeri. Okay.
Is it?
That's what Git says. So where is the boundary? After that river, after Narumoru, there's a bit of a bend, and then you go down, and then you.
Actually, it's interesting because it looks like it's an intersection.
It's that intersection point. Huh?
Yes.
Okay.
Just like for a long time, I thought that Nanyuki was actually in central Kenya.
Nanyuki is Rift Valley.
Yes, it is.
Nanyuki was in the same province as Turkana.
Yes.
And Narok.
Yes. Vast, isn't it?
And Kajiado.
Yes. And they bordered Emali.
Imagine.
Which is Eastern Province.
Okay.
Amazing, isn't it? Huh?
I know, it is. I still want to go, though.
And they border Taveta down there.
Yes, they do.
Which is the coast.
Yes, they do. Actually, when you talk about Emali, it's a cross-section of, 3 provinces at that point in time actually converged at that particular point.
Emali is just here. Emali was actually 2 provinces.
I'm giving it 3 because
just Eastern and Rift Valley.
Yeah. Then if you move further up, you get to Taita Taveta.
Yeah. Higher. Thank you, Gitch. If you say it's in Narumoru,
Nyeri.
It's in Nyeri. Whomstawi. What's in the papers?
So, members of parliament have been very busy and they're putting a spirited effort towards this lower cost of fuel thing. It's actually quite tickling, I must say. I like it very much. Lawmakers are pushing for substantial cutting of levies charged on fuel in a raft of recommendations that will see Treasury lose billions of shillings in revenue. Members of the National Assembly Finance and National Planning Committee, who have been under fire for the skyrocketing cost of fuel in the country, now seek to reduce VAT from 8% to 4%, as well as the Petroleum Development Levy by a half. Also targeted for reduction is the VAT rate on liquefied petroleum gas from 16% to 8%, as well as the gross margins of oil marketing companies by 3 shillings. The radical recommendations are contained in a draft report prepared by the committee chaired by Homa Bay Women Rep Gladys Wanga. The details emerged on a day the committee sought for a 7-day extension to make further inquiry of demurrage cost that had also been linked to the high fuel prices in the country. They met yesterday, right? The committee had been given 14 days that expires today to investigate reasons for the high fuel prices following numerous petitions to the House. Wanga yesterday told the House that the committee had made a significant progress on the matter by inviting over 10 stakeholders as well as receiving several written submissions. So come see us, tell us, right? The committee disclosed that it had received more new information regarding demurrage, informing its decision to seek for extension. According to Wanga, the committee received new information regarding demurrage charges, which has a bearing to the retail cost of fuel. The committee wants to inquire into the matter. It is against this that the committee is seeking your leave for extension of the period for a further 7 days. So they're still investigating. They want to get to the bottom of this. And hopefully at the end of the day, the results or the fruits that will be born from this is a lower fuel cost. So they're burning the midnight oil. They're working to the bone, and hopefully this will yield a good result.
Okay.
And you're saying that the effort is laudable, is it?
I'm saying it's interesting to watch. Yeah.
You put it well. There is the need to acknowledge progress, and there's the need to acknowledge good work when it's being done. But there's also the need to state the obvious, and that is this is their job.
Yeah.
This is what they ought to have done in the first place.
So all these things they're talking about, the big proposals here is reduce VAT. It is not something they could not have thought about before.
No.
In fact, this issue was raised before. The second one is reduce excise duty. This issue was raised also before. I mean, just this thing of excise duty just going up because cost of inflation and all, it could be addressed. They could have done it before. Now, the investigation into the other proposal that they're having is in that fuel formula, the margin for oil marketers is capped at 12 bob. That is everybody from Kenya Pipeline to the truck person to the station person, everybody, you share that 12 bob. Now they want to reduce it to 9 shillings. Okay. That is a conversation, that's an interesting conversation, because are you engaging the oil marketers to actually understand whether this 9 bob
is actually workable?
If you reduce it by that margin, whether it's
survive?
workable. Okay. But also there's the issue of the demurrage that they're raising. So demurrage is the amount of money that a ship is paid as it waits to dock for it to be offloaded. So why are ships taking so long? Have you talked to KPA to find out why is a ship taking so long for it to dock? So why are we paying the demurrage? That investigation could be good. We have received information that one ship alone was paid 55 million shillings while waiting to dock. And we've also learned that not all the demurrage is given to the shipping line. That calls for deep investigations. But that is not even something that should stop you from coming up with that's a separate investigation altogether.
Totally.
Yeah, the amount of demurrage paid is amount of demurrage paid. If a separate investigation is conducted and that is streamlined, we'll still see a reduction in fuel cost. So I don't think it's a whole necessary story for them to say, give us some more time so we can investigate demurrage. They will not understand what this demurrage cost is all about.
And if then they are, look at it, when they're told that, this is what we are charging for demurrage because this is what we are charging. Yeah.
You need to have several sittings with people who actually are now understanding this, and so that you can get to see, does it make sense? How can you streamline?
Is it possible to make it cheaper?
Just streamline that process so that ship comes, ship docks, ship is offloaded, ship leaves.
Says there's maximum 3 days, finish your business. Those who are supposed to be offloading, those who are in that process, is there something they're doing? It's clear. You can insist on streamlining, but then you can't come and say that it must be cheaper. Do you understand the process?
Everything that is being mentioned on this particular subject, including the discussion on the supplementary budget that they have asked the Treasury to come up with, there is nothing that couldn't have been done earlier. But if they issue this as an edict instead of engaging the so-called stakeholders, then we will not have made any progress. This is not something you do unilaterally. You have to include, and Eric, thank you for bringing it up. You have to actually bring in these stakeholders and let them inform you. They are the experts in this field.
Yeah.
Let them say what they have to say and take it into account even as you're making your decision. And even they will then know that the decision you're making is being made after you've already consulted them.
Yep.
Yes.
And the information that you've received, if you received it from one source, corroborate that information and dig deeper into it.
Yes.
Why is the source coming up with this issue now, today? So what's their interest?
But the idea
game?
that all this work is to look after the interests of the Monanchi Bank.
You don't buy it.
It would be wishful thinking.
You don't buy it at all.
All this energy, all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Look, the question I have to ask myself is it too little, too late? Is this too much on time? Why
is it timely?
Yes. Why must there be a response to pressure?
Or why must there be a response only when there's pressure?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a month when MPs get a reduction in salary? Because this particular month they did not do as much work as they did. Is there a timesheet that they have to fill in to determine how many hours they work? No. They are paid what they are paid every month, which means this work that they're doing now is work that they ought to have been doing before.
Oh, no, there's going to be a difference. They have many more sittings this month as the finance committee. So you know what?
I know what it's going to cost us more.
Yeah, it's 27 minutes to 7. Let's take this break, take a look at the traffic. We'll be looking at more headlines shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life 24/7 around the world non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
Hello.
Umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu
Hebu acha nikuambie kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial *550*1# to read the Standard e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line, and stay up to date for a reliable source with over 100 years of experience with no additional data charges.
Do you live in a just city? Are you able to freely navigate? Do you live in dignity? Are you safe? This Saturday, Olivia Otieno will be speaking to experts to understand what just cities are and if they exist in Kenya. Here's a sneak peek.
We definitely are fully aware that there is growing urbanization that is characterized by inequalities and therefore the emergence of unjust cities. I therefore invite the civil societies to join hands with the Just Cities Working Group and other stakeholders to promote just urbanization and jointly progress towards the making of just cities and just societies in Kenya.
Just Cities, a special 00 direct account with Olivia Otieno this Saturday from 10 a.m. only on 94.4 Spice FM.
Okay, let's start with where it's looking pretty good. It's looking good coming off from Gong Road. The southern bypass is also beautiful. But Gathi Way, not a drop of traffic at all as you're trying to get to the city mortuary roundabout. It's looking good in certain parts of industrial area. Lusaka Road flowing like the breeze. We're also looking at Lunga Lunga, not too bad. Likoni Road also approaching the exchange or Mombasa Road, flowing free as air. Langata Road, well, most parts of it for now is looking pretty good as well. So if you're headed in either one of those directions, you're fine. Now onto where it's not moving. Mombasa Road is also piling up right now. We're looking at the CBD also clogging up quite some. And if you take a look at the Thika Superhighway, this is where most of the traffic you'll experience this morning has already begun, just a few minutes past 6:30, all the way back to Survey this morning, inbound to the city. Other than that, things around the city don't look too bad. Coming out of Westlands is where you're probably going to see a bit of a build-up, but there's the option of using the Red Hill Link Road off Waiaki Way instead of sticking in that traffic. So it does look pretty good, and we've not yet gotten into traffic hour. So if you're out, now is the time to be, because if you're not out, rather, now is the time to be, because then you can get where you're going real quick. In about half an hour, things might change, but we're here to let you know what it looks like then. SpiceFMKE on Twitter is how you can get in touch, just in case. Text on 40127.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings
It is
done right.
23.
94.
City, what are you looking at?
Well, let me ignore what I'm looking at and talk about what I was looking at earlier. Okay. Treasury to pay motorists 18 billion for costly fuel. This is Business Daily.
Okay.
Now, this Committee of Parliament has directed, let me just read it out instead of trying to explain it. Let me read it and then try and see if, as I read it, you can make head or tail of what it is that is being written here.
Okay.
Parliament has directed Treasury to offer motorists an 18.1 billion compensation for diverting fuel subsidy cash to the Chinese firm operating the Standard Gauge Railway, SGR. The National Assembly Finance Committee wants the Treasury to use the 18.1 billion to reinstate fuel subsidy that was introduced in April and discontinued last month, sending fuel prices to the highest level in Kenya's history.
Go on.
Okay.
Well, so far where we are,
Yeah,
I'm not seeing where I'm getting my money. I'm a motorist.
Yes. The scheme, supported by collecting 5 shillings and 40 cents a litre from July last year, was depleted in August after the state used 3.8 billion to upgrade the infrastructure in the energy sector and 18.1 billion to support the SGR operations. The Treasury collected 31 billion, blah, 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 and it continues, okay? Now, the fund is meant to cushion consumers from volatility in fuel prices, but has also seen motorists lose out when paying the 5 shillings and 40 cents a litre in the pump, okay? The details that you asked for are not provided in this article.
If you just think about it, just literally, how is a subsidy to be utilized? Like how we saw it being utilized. It was utilized by not paying the motorists, but by paying the oil marketers because of the reduced margin.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it is the oil marketers who are going to receive
benefit.
With that benefit, then you also see your pump price not rising. Is that what they are calling paying me?
Yes. That's
you see. I think it's a misleading headline, because when it says Treasury ordered to pay motorists, how much? Billions.
18.
It's like, because you used that money, then go find it and refund motorists for
who
what
bought
they
fuel.
Who bought fuel?
Yes, but if you think about it, I thought about it and figured, how are they going to pay me? What are they going to do?
Reduce the fuel price longer.
So the headline is misleading, because the headline ought to have stated that motorists to benefit.
Yes.
So that one then is broad enough for us to understand how a reduction in the cost of fuel will benefit us. But to pay...
No.
Yeah, it's like a reimbursement.
Yeah, it's like a reimbursement that you will line up at point X and then be given back this money.
That can't happen.
No, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
That can't happen.
No.
But what I wonder is, even as they are asking Treasury to do this, what really, we understand what that fuel levy is supposed to do.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Are you telling us that Treasury is not allowed to divert that money to do something else with it?
No, it shouldn't. No,
it
it
should
shouldn't.
be used for what it said it's going to be used
The
for.
problem, though, and I don't know whether Gladys Wanga's committee and the others are looking at it, is the regulations and the mechanics for drawing that fund are not clear. You see, they paid for improvement of the oil infrastructure, for doing this and the other. What is the fund meant to do, and how should the fund be used? If the fund is meant to cushion against rising costs, what are these causes of rising cost, and then how should the fund be drawn? You can't just be saying, we gave the petroleum ministry some 3 billion shillings, we gave this so and so, and in that whole kerfuffle, we also gave the SGR guys some money because they needed something. No. There's a railway development levy in fuel.
It is.
There are other development levies in fuel, and this is a fund that's supposed to be cushioning against fluctuations in price.
For motorists.
Yes.
Yes, specifically.
So it should be going right into that entire value chain. So what are we paying? Are we paying for demurrage? Are we paying for pipeline? Or are we paying for distribution from depot to station? What are we paying?
What I consider in the entire article is the availability of information to the point where we can actually know how money has been spent. So there's no opaqueness. That is a good thing, because in the absence of that, we wouldn't even know what to discuss. It would just be money that was there and now isn't there.
But I think we should just be clear on this point that there's not going to be any lineup where if you bought fuel in the last 30 days that you'll be asked to come and then get your money back. It is not going to happen.
Get it from whom?
So what is, if the suggestion is that for longer prices will be lower, perhaps that is what should be reported. But if anybody heard that thinking that you're going to be called in the next couple of days, it's not happening.
I was going to rest the case Ndu, and then when you mentioned the issue of lower prices, unfortunately, I am ill at ease with that. And for this reason, this story of fuel prices in this country going down and going up, anytime fuel prices in this country go down, it is like it's being preset so that it can go up again. It's a continuous pattern. And if you look at it, you really hardly ever recover.
Right.
Meaning, we are always paying more and more and more and more for fuel. And we know why we pay more for fuel. Because we are taxed more and more for the fuel. If when fuel petroleum products were zero rated, who are still having petrol
issues.
Come on, for heaven's sake. I mean, this madness that we have in this country, where everybody in whichever sector must become a billionaire by trying to find some crooked ways of siphoning money from the system. Surely.
The question is, when will it end, if it ever will?
So I have a story from Migori, and as I'm looking at that, I'm trying to get some definition. What is gold leaching?
I suspect there's something to do with gold.
Your brilliance is shimmering this morning.
Yes, it is. And we all know what a leech is.
It's a
gold-producing area, by the way,
for
just that you
extracting
understand.
gold from low-grade ore by converting the gold to a water-soluble coordination complex. Most commonly used leaching process for gold extraction. How does gold leaching? I'm just looking at that before I tell you the story. Leaching dissolves the gold out of the ore using a chemical solvent. Okay, so you get ore, you leach, you get gold.
Voila.
So
separates
now,
the gold from the...
Yes. There's gold in Migori.
There's always been gold in Migori.
There's gold in Nyatike. There's gold in other parts of the country as well.
There's gold in Nikolomani.
Narok, Siaya, Nandi, Kakamega. Okay? This gold is not bringing some good news to the residents. There's a story here that's on page 20 of The Nation today. Julieta Chola sits pensively under the shade in her compound. On September 23rd, she lost 3 cattle after they drank water from a seasonal stream, poisoned by sodium cyanide from a nearby gold leaching plant. They must have ingested a very lethal chemical because one of the animals dropped dead immediately. Moments later, the other 2 started foaming at the mouth before dropping dead. 3 cows, gone.
Finished.
Mzee Rafael Akongo, another resident, lost 4 bulls in a similar manner and at the same time. It seems the chemical was carried by runoff following heavy downpour. It was a huge loss because I solely depended on my 4 bulls for a living. The incident has sparked outrage from the community, with members storming the nearby gold leaching site. They demanded closure of the leaching plant, saying the September incident was the 3rd in a span of 3 months. We depend on this stream for all our domestic use due to water scarcity in the area, and we risk losing lives if drastic measures are not taken. On the spot, a local gold leaching site that used sodium cyanide, a poisonous chemical used in gold prospecting. Often, it finds its way into nearby streams whenever there is a downpour because most leaching sites lack proper disposal mechanisms. What have the residents done? They have gone to the National Environment Complaints Committee, and the committee has visited Kowor village. The secretary of this committee, John Chumo, said, "We received the complaints and there are several government bodies carrying out investigations. Once the reports are out, we are considering taking legal action against the firm." The plant's proprietors did not want to comment. "We will not allow investors to continue endangering people's lives." That's what Mr. Chumo said, adding that they'd seek legal redress. Nyatike Sub-County Commissioner Paul Langat said they took samples from the affected animals, water and soil samples, and the results are yet to come out. Chumo says the committee has received similar complaints from Narok, Siaya, Nandi, Kakamega counties, where livestock deaths have been attributed to unregulated gold leaching sites. So, you got the gist of that story?
Yes, I do.
There's a plant. It's doing what it's doing. It does not have proper disposal mechanisms, allegedly. And then there's a downpour, runoff, river. People, cows drink. Cows die. People are alive.
Does it not follow?
It's a concern. We have agencies that are saying, yeah, we're investigating this. In fact, we've even been told about, we've gone to Narok, we've gone to... People's livelihoods are just being affected like that. And the only thing you're doing is, first of all, we're conducting investigations. Meanwhile, the plant is still doing its thing.
You know, since these officials actually exist, but it is clear that they have not been doing their duties, the first thing that should happen, they should be relieved of their duties immediately. And then someone to actually explain how it is they go about the business of regulating. Because it's one of regulation. But if you talk about industry and how they poison the environment in which they work, this isn't the first time we're hearing of these stories.
Nope. There was that story of Mombasa.
Yes.
Remember?
That battery producing factory.
And it had to go to court.
It had to go to court. And what about the industrialized area of the Movoko County?
Yep.
It isn't one story, it isn't two, it isn't three.
Yeah.
There are very, very many.
Yes. And what about Lake Victoria? Raw sewage being pumped right into the lake.
Yep.
Factories around the lake pumping whatever residue they have right into the lake. You have NEMA, chief culprit.
Yep.
The people are supposed to oversee all these things. Chief. And it's always one story of NEMA is writing a report. NEMA is investigating. Before people go, don't you think it is NEMA who actually ought to be taking these people to court?
NEMA should be the ones.
NEMA should actually be sounding these things out to say that we've been able to look through this area, and this area, and this is what we find and hold. Look, the process should not be that you find an issue and then you take it to NEMA and say, please deal with this. It should be the other way around. That you should have your boots on the ground as NEMA saying that this is what we see, because that is actually their mandate. If you look at the mandate of this authority, that is what they're supposed to be doing. It's not a complaint receiving authority.
No, it's actually an extortion receiving. Because in most cases, you complain, the problem is there. Why doesn't it get resolved? Because the complainant's issues are put aside. You hear stories of these very same officials from these same agencies going to the perpetrators to cut a deal.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
And to continually shaft
So the problem
people.
doesn't go, in fact, it worsens. And until the complainants go to court, that's when there is a likelihood that they may get some reprieve.
And when they go to court, like the lady that we spoke to from Mombasa, the one who took this case to Mombasa.
Yes.
It's years, 10 years.
And the kind of harassment that they receive.
Yeah.
Death threats.
And you're still sick.
Yes.
People die.
Yeah.
Children died.
Factories are shut down for a period, reopened again without clear. So, you see, again, this culture that we have developed and we continue to encourage in our country, where people in any positions of authority consider that to be a business that they're running.
Yeah.
They're not employees of the government working for the citizenry. No, they are in a business. And the business boils down to extortion. How do I make money for myself from this?
Yeah. A friend of yours gets appointed to NEMA today. You just start thinking, opportunities. Let's take this quick break.
SpiceFM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they are getting per year, how much inconvenience they are causing. As much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a Fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge suka koroge unga nini hayuko.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
All right, at 8.
Done right.
So there are two cases. There's the Anglo Leasing Papers and Triton Oil. Remember that?
Yes.
Okay, let's start with Anglo Leasing. The magistrate has thrown out Anglo Leasing Papers. A magistrate has struck off part of the evidence in the Anglo Leasing case for not meeting the threshold for admission. Anti-corruption Chief Magistrate Felix Combo ruled that the evidence had legal anomalies since the prosecution failed to follow proper channels in obtaining the material from Switzerland. According to Combo, it is curious why proper channels in terms of obtaining the evidence from Switzerland were not followed in securing the documents. It is even a matter of more curiosity that it took 3 years to get the said documents, which are public documents. According to him, it is expected that the documents meet the admissibility criteria for fair trial of the accused, and that a contention by the prosecution that the evidence was legally acquired cannot threshold. In this case, businessman Deepak Kamani and his brother Rashmi Kamani are charged with conspiracy to defraud the government through Anglo-leasing contracts. They are charged alongside former Permanent Secretaries Dave Mwangi and Joseph Magari and former Head of Debt Management at the Treasury David Onyonka. It is alleged that they conspired to defraud 6.5 billion shillings through computerization of police projects, unlawfully acquired 121 million shillings to modernize police surveillance systems, failing to comply with the procurement rules and engaging in the project without proper planning. Their lawyers, Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi and Sabia Karen, objected to the evidence submitted by the prosecution, arguing that they had legal flaws in the acquisition, retention, and manner of presentation before the court. Now, those papers which finally had been acquired 3 years later, without a doubt, have now been thrown out because of the manner in which they were obtained. A technicality at best.
Yep.
But a technicality is a huge thing when it comes to whether the evidence then can be admissible or not. In this case...
How was the evidence acquired? How was it handled?
Yeah. So the lawyers submitted that the documents were illegally obtained through a flawed mutual legal assistance procedure between Kenya and Switzerland.
Read that again, please.
Again, here we go. The lawyers had submitted that the documents were illegally obtained through a flawed mutual legal assistance procedure between Kenya and Switzerland.
So
the magistrates agreed with the objection, ruling that the prosecution failed to follow laid down procedures required for certification in regard to presentation of secondary evidence. He said photocopies of original documents that the prosecution would have relied on fell below the certification criteria since they were obtained from another law firm based in Switzerland. It is curious that original documents, which are public documents, cannot be traced at the source. So why did we have the original? You've given us a photocopy. On that, we'll say this is below the threshold. We needed the originals, and these things are in the public domain. You didn't get them, and on that, we're going to throw it out.
This is a game of shadows.
Why do you say so?
Whenever we have not just a framework for this, but an understanding, an MOU signed.
Between Kenya and Switzerland?
Yes. We had the Swiss president coming to this country for that very purpose.
Right.
Okay? We had the Swiss ambassador in this studio explaining those details to us in great detail. Okay? The government of Kenya, the DPP's office is a government office. They write to the counterpart in Switzerland or however they communicate. If you want this document, the documents are sent. This issue of they went to some lawyer, gave them a photocopy. What?
See, now that's what the judge is saying exactly.
No.
This is what the magistrate is saying.
That is what I am calling it a game of shadows because there is absolutely no way that the DPP does not know what the procedures are and what ought to be done and how to do it. It does no way.
Yep. And he hasn't gone to court to say, I tried to follow this.
And it didn't work.
I was not able to. So please, Madam Magistrate, give me authority to then follow this other.
Yes. So this entire story that we're hearing, so the magistrate said this happened, this is orchestrated.
And of the 43 documents that were needed, only 3 met the threshold.
What?
Tell me. Tell me.
And we have okay. So I hear what you're saying and I agree. And I think the game starts at the DPP's office.
Yes.
Because why would you bring in? Why would you make it so easy for magistrate to look at it, and even the magistrate is wondering. So
what is this?
What have you guys given me here?
What is this?
And this thing is the public. Anybody, Eric CT can get this document.
It's public information, and you are not able to get it.
Then you
and you're the DPP's office,
and you have the power of the DPP.
Yes.
No. So you can imagine.
No.
Yeah. Why would the DPP do that? Why would it be so obvious for the defense also to just pick it out immediately and say, okay, this document, that document, the other document,
Thank you, Eric.
Throw it out?
How?
Yeah.
These are dance moves.
And this is a big case. This is Anglo-leasing we're talking about.
You're talking about these two brothers who even implicated a Swiss ambassador in this country with corruption. Okay? These are people who are in this dock because there are corruption issues levied against them.
You can be as bold as to say if the DPP was serious about getting this case adjudicated in the way in which it ought to be, something as basic as this would not be a mistake.
No.
Basic as this.
No. This is a dance. Something has happened. People have been spoken to and they have heard what there has been said. And what we're being told here is the outcome of
the conversation.
Exactly.
And let us tell them we have also heard and we have understood.
Right.
Yes.
A minute. The second story was about?
Now, the DPP also has received a blow because the director of the DPP, rather, he suffered a major setback in the multi-million shillings Triton oil case after a magistrate dismissed his application for more evidence. The anti-corruption chief magistrate Mugambi ruled that it will be unfair to allow the DPP introduce new evidence since it will mean sending the accused persons back to the drawing board to prepare their defense. Now, this is different because the DPP said, in this case, we actually have more. But now,
you're presenting it how many years after?
Starting from the beginning, and we've been at this thing for years. Why did you not bring it before? You had the time to find it. You didn't.
No.
Now, you want to take us back to square one. We are not going back to square one. Forget it. Do we deal with what we have right now, or we don't deal?
This whole thing, including the magistrate, it smells. In fact, it stinks to high heaven.
So,
unfortunately, in all these things, there are people who actually sit in the dock. There are people who are not able to move. There are people whose travel
12
documents
years, my friend. The guy has been there for 12 years. Now you want to bring new evidence. Where were you? 12 years.
People suffer in these things, man. That's the sad part.
Is it the DPP's fault that the court system is slow?
Well, it's the top of the hour. Keep it right here. In the next hour, we have the CAS in the Ministry of Health. Good morning, 7 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. The Bishop of the African Brotherhood, Church Timothy Ndambuki, chaired session with various leaders from Ukambani to discuss the political direction of the Akamba community ahead of next year's general election. The meeting was held in Machakos, called for the community's politicians to come together.
Tumekuja pamoja kwa sababu tuligundua ya kwamba tunaendelea kuchelewa kujipanga kisiasa na kimaendeleo. Tunastahili kuwa na mpango. Wakamba kila mahali wanasema tunataka kuwa ndani ya serikali. Na haya masuala yote ndio tunajaribu kujadiliana.
Makweni Governor Kivuta Kibwana and former Machakos Senator Johnson Muthama attended the meeting with Governor Charity Ngilu of Kitui and his Machakos counterpart missing. Now, 90 teachers lost their lives to COVID-19 since the virus struck the country, with TSC CEO Nancy Macharia naming teachers as heroes who took on responsibilities during the pandemic. Macharia says that TSC will continue to involve various stakeholders to ensure that teachers are safe while at work.
Allow me to first of all celebrate posthumously our 90 heroes and heroines who succumbed to COVID-19 over the last year. Some of them in the middle of their tireless effort as schools opened, and some of them as they were ensuring that learning in our schools was back on track.
31 teachers were honored for their efforts to improve the national examination result. Some of the teachers are Mayo Sami of Kapsabet High School, Kuria John of Mangu, and Ademba Eric of Asumbi Girls High School.
We are also honoring some of our teachers who have beaten all odds. We at TSC will keep finding more ways to ensure all our teachers feel recognized and appreciated.
This as NAT Secretary General Collins Oyu has called on the government to value teachers for their efforts, including improving the working environment as well as salary increases.
This year, let us emphasize and stress the value of teachers due to the important role they played in the rebuilding the nation in the delicate times of COVID-19. Everyone needs to participate in this profession, and even those who are closer to the profession, by generating awareness about teacher issues and ensuring teachers' respect is part of the natural order of things.
39 people have been arrested for operating illegal drug stores in Nairobi, 29 suspects from Eastlands and 10 others in Kawangware. The Pharmacy and Poisons Board officers said some of the pharmacies had flouted licensing procedures, whereas others were operating without a license. The Poisons Board officers said they were working with police officers from Kilimani Police in the ongoing crackdown in order to get rid of pharmacies and chemists that were selling drugs to the public without licenses from the board.
We also want to appreciate the office of the National Police Service that has been supporting us from the upper hand, that now without them the issues of security of the inspectors, security of the resources that we have, and also enforcing the arrest would have been a difficult part. So that is where we are, and we still continue. This is a routine work and ensure that we completely wipe out all those people that are practicing illegally and leave the people who are licensed and qualifying to run the pharmacies to actually attend the public with that surety that now they are going to get the right medication and personnel to attend on them.
The National Assembly Finance Committee has been granted 7 more days to probe high fuel costs. The committee is set to table its report on Tuesday next week. A petition was brought before the National Assembly to look into the recent fuel prices that has sent the nation into fury. The document received by the House Speaker was filed by Anthony Manyara and John Wangai, calling for urgent repeal of Section 13 of the Finance Act of 2018. This even as Kenyans are set to know the new fuel prices on Thursday next week. Now, the Ministry of Tourism has said Kenya's ongoing vaccination program will boost the confidence of the international visitors. Opening this year's Magical Kenya Travel Expo, Tourism CS Najib Balala said the safety of travelers globally is now a priority due to COVID-19. Balala said tourism industry players should learn the lessons brought about by the pandemic when it comes to marketing their products and handling of travelers. Now, a former Facebook employee has told US lawmakers that the company's sites and apps harm children, stroke the vision, and weaken the democracy. Franz Hogan, a 37-year-old former product manager turned whistleblower, heavily criticized the company at a hearing on Capitol Hill. Facebook has faced growing scrutiny and increasing calls for its regulation. Founder Mark Zuckerberg hit back, saying recent coverage painted a false picture of the company. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
Okay, so let's look at what traffic is a few minutes after 7 o'clock. Already building up on Mombasa Road like we saw earlier, in and outbound in this case. The southern bypass looks pretty good. Langata Road, we woke up with it looking pretty good this morning as well. Not too much drama getting into the city, so this is a good thing. We're looking at just a little bit of it at that connection then between Langata Road itself and the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, and then connecting with Aerodrome out towards Uhuru Highway. In and outbound is where you'll see some traffic on Uhuru Highway this morning. Gong Road, what we saw in terms of traffic before, has also settled down quite some. Industrial area continues to look good. We're not yet in traffic hour, but we will be soon. But from all indications, it's not going to be a terrible day in terms of traffic, but you never know. These are, after all, Nairobi streets. Looking at the Thika Superhighway, not too bad, but then it's backed up all the way to Survey, and that's inbound. Kiambu Road also is piling up right now. Take a look at things in a bit. Let us know if you might be stuck in here. Don't forget the bypasses will serve you well this morning. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
It's after, what time is it? 7, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well done.
It's because it's the 6th day of October. That's what was confusing me. I was wondering, 7th, 6th. Welcome to the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation. We are here until 10 a.m. and we are live on SpiceFM. We are also live online, SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, www.spicefm.co.ke. Before we introduce our next guest, who needs no introduction, the day's proverb.
A stranger does not skin a goat given as a fine in a chief's camp.
A stranger does not skin a goat. Go on. The rest were too many words.
Yes, given as a fine in a chief's camp. Meaning, you can skin a goat in a chief's camp,
but not the fine. Not the one given as a fine.
And not a stranger.
Yeah.
Meaning, it isn't unusual for you to see such an occurrence. But it can't be a stranger. But more so, it can't be a goat that is given as a fine.
There you go.
Okay. Our guest this hour is Dr. Mercy Mwangangi, the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Health. Remember, we said this week, the 7 to 8 hour, we are celebrating 5 women who are making big moves in public service. And we had Dr. Kizi Shako on Monday. We had Kithinji yesterday, Emma Kithinji yesterday. Now today we have Dr. Mercy Mwangangi. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
It's good to see you again, Dr. Mwangangi.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the last time we met, that was during the thick of the COVID-19 pandemic last year, which we're still dealing with.
Yeah.
So happy to be here today and share with everyone what we're doing in terms of women in public service and all the excellent women, big moves, big boss moves that they're making in the public sector.
Indeed, big boss moves. Good stuff.
Yeah.
It's also good to see you relaxed. I mean, the last time you were here, we were also all
everyone was high-strung.
And we were just wondering, so what's happening? When are we going to die? So
yeah,
am I going to die at night or during the day? I mean, who do I need to blame for my death? And all those things.
Well, we're still in that space in the sense of the pandemic is not over.
Yep.
But a lot has changed since, last year, March, April. You all know we have the vaccine. I didn't ask you all if you've been vaccinated, but I'm assuming, seeing as you're all sitting in this room, and some people look like they're over 60, they have been vaccinated. That guy right there, he looks like he's over 60. He's probably been vaccinated. So a lot has happened in the COVID fight, right? We have vaccines.
Yep.
That's the biggest silver bullet that we have right now. And the country is in a good spot because we now have at least close to 6 million doses in stock.
Right.
So hoping to get to our 10 million target in December.
There's a target of 5.8 million in the next 14 days.
Yes.
Now, looking at the latest statistics from the ministry yesterday, 3.9 what?
3.935.
That's where we are at. And we think we will make the target. So what's happening is in a day we started with 10,000, got to 50,000. We had a good week where we managed to get to 90,000 a day, people vaccinated. So what we've been doing, if you've noticed in the last week, is really pushing what we're calling RRIs in different groups and cohorts. Yesterday, CS Muthui Kagwe was in Mathare Hospital. So we got all our inpatients vaccinated in Mathare, as well as outpatients, as well as the families of the staff and the staff. Last week, we were in Naivasha, dealing with the prisoners together with CS Matiang'i. So we are on a drive, a rapid results initiative drive to get to that 5.8. 3.9 is not too bad. If you're doing 90 a day, you should be able to get to 5.8. And it's significant because Kenya will be turning 58 very soon. So
right. Because we're just looking at it. Last week we had Dr. Willis Ahwale, chair of the vaccine deployment program. And he was telling us, so the target is, if we are to hit that, let's aim at 100,000 a day.
Exactly, yeah.
2 million, that at the beginning of the month, it was 2 million. Now that we have 14 days, it's basically looking at 1.4 million.
Right.
And I'm looking at this and I'm seeing 1.4 million, we are still off target.
Well, here's the thing. Cautious enthusiasm.
Okay.
In terms of stocks, we have the vaccines, right? So we have literally most of the platforms available. Moderna, Pfizer, I think you also that we now have the syringes and what we needed to sort of get that going. So I think what you'll see is intensive activity in the next 2 weeks. I'm happy with certain counties who've taken the initiative. Kiambu governor took it upon himself. He's launched an outreach. He's going to people in stages. So I think we'll get to it. Let's wait and see. Perhaps, if we'll be nervous a week too, then you may see all of us out there in the streets trying to get to that 5.8 million. But I think there's good demand. Kenyans are looking for vaccines, so we should be able to get to that 5.8. Yeah.
What are we looking at in terms of there are many questions, and I know that has kind of riddled the whole process before, and we've been able to go past that and already deal with that and say, look, the good vaccine is the available vaccine.
Yeah, that's important.
Right?
That's super important.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are you still dealing with?
I think right now the biggest thing is it's sort of, like a car engine, and no, I'm not an engineer or mechanical engineer, and I really don't like cars, but the thing is, getting all those cogs and wheels working and efficient and agile perhaps is where we are at right now, because we have the doses and we have the staff, right, who've been doing this for a long time, even beyond COVID-19. We've been giving many vaccines, and Kenya is good when it comes to immunization programs. Yeah. But then dealing with, should I say, the logistics and the agility that's needed. I'm sure you've all heard of complaints here and there. I went to Mbagathi, I waited for 2 hours, or I went here and, to Mata, and they said there's a stock out. Yeah. So it's getting that, well-oiled engine working and all the nuts and bolts greased so that we can get that going. And of course, it's a new sort of space in the sense of it's an adult vaccine. So I think that's the biggest sort of challenge for Kenya. We've always done pediatric vaccines or child immunization vaccines. So we have systems set for that. A mother comes in, she has the booklet, she knows it's a must. But when you deal with adults who you have to, one, of course, nudge towards getting the vaccine because it's protective, it's good public health good. And then number two, then getting the systems and everything going, it's been a challenge. I remember about 3 weeks ago, we had the challenge of reporting, right? So facilities were actually consuming their doses, but then in their submissions to us, there's a lag. So meaning we, of course, cannot push vaccines to them. And of course, that then affects mwananchi when they go to the facility. So it's getting that working.
That I have trouble understanding this. I can understand the issue of, we're dealing with adults now.
Yeah.
So adult is hesitancy, is information. But the machine working, this is government.
Right.
Government is a machine.
Right.
And it's always working, it's always moving. So when you get to a point where because to me those are basics, that information, for example, coming back to the headquarters to say we have exhausted or we need more, or just getting the vaccine out of the central location to a facility, those should be basics.
So
those should be things that you just
you.
Put in there and you press a button.
I do agree with you in terms of, if you look at it like the running of an institution or the running of hospitals, of course, government has been in that business since independence. The thing here is with the COVID-19 vaccine, there's so many stakeholders, so many new players in the game. And what's interesting is that now we're dealing with almost 4 vaccine platforms, right? So if you take your child to the facility, it's BCG. BCG is clear. It's BCG. We're running with BCG. It's done.
Okay.
Right now, we have people dealing with Sinopharm. We have people dealing with Moderna, Pfizer, and AstraZeneca. So in terms of the players, it's actually a new space, even for our healthcare workers. And, for those kinks to be sorted out, remember, not just public facilities, but also private facilities but also faith-based facilities. And one of the interesting things that you may not know is that if you look at the paradigm of all the health ownership facilities that we have in the country, now is the time where we are having actually most of all those facilities reporting into a single database. It's actually a new sort of what we're calling a silver lining of COVID. It's making us demand data from each and every health facility that is administering the vaccine or testing when it comes to COVID-19. So a few kinks here, but I'm more hopeful, especially being in the sector for 10 years, for us to be able to pull this off where we are right now, and how we've done it. Yes, it's not 100%, but I think there's need to appreciate, all the workers and everyone who's made this possible to date.
You're in the engine room, obviously, so you can see the things that are happening, and you can see this is actually a big thing compared to yesterday when that particular cog wasn't moving at all. So you can see that. And when you say that, you have that optimism.
Yeah.
All right, we'll give you that.
Yeah.
The other issue that we keep asking ourselves on a daily basis, we start the show with tracking COVID-19 numbers.
Yes.
And then we have now the figures from the ministry. Yesterday, X number of samples, X tested positive, X number of deaths reported. These deaths are coming from 3 months, 4 months ago. And the one thing that we keep saying here is, How is it that we can be reporting a COVID death 4 months down the road?
Yeah.
Nobody gets buried in this country without the government knowing.
Right. So, I mean, fantastic question. And this is a question that's actually been discussed intensely within the Ministry of Health. And there's a team. So there's a data team, a HIS team, we call them, who are trying to deal with those issues. So let's get some context here. Mortality reporting the world over is actually a challenge for many countries. There was a time Kenya was actually, struggling when it came to reporting of births and deaths, because it starts way beyond the Ministry of Health into, the Ministry of Interior and Coordination when it comes to registration of births and deaths. This is what we call civil vital statistics. We had a forum where we sat with Africa CDC and WHO, and we were discussing, what is the true mortality when it comes to COVID-19, and do we have any excess mortality? So deaths that are not accounted for with any other cause, and perhaps then can we attribute those deaths to COVID-19? And we started an assessment in Kenya, and this was started also in all other countries, so in the Africa CDC, AU Union countries, and also abroad. Interesting fact, all countries, including the UK, including America, have come forward and stated that they do have challenges when it comes to accounting for deaths for COVID-19. And it is because of the processes of how you do that. For example, it's important to note most deaths that are captured in the system are deaths that happen perhaps in the healthcare setting, so in the hospital. Deaths that happen at home, deaths that happen en route even to hospitals. Sometimes we have missing data of those matrices. Another important thing is perhaps even the deaths that are captured in a hospital require further auditing and interrogation. So I could be a diabetic hypertensive who then got COVID, who then got a fracture, who then fell from a balcony. And we're still in the space where our medics and the systems are trying to code what is called disease coding and causes of death. So it's a lot of, let me say, a lot of technical jargon. You can see me rattling on behind there. There's a lot that goes on in the background.
It's work in progress.
To fight, not really work in progress, but let me say a challenge in global recording of mortalities. So it's beyond Kenya. It's something that's happening across the world. And essentially, the idea is, how do we code better for diseases? How do we code better for death? How do we code better for also morbidity diseases? And it affects systems.
I hear you also saying that the cause of death for a particular individual could be multiple.
So that's the thing.
Right?
So, and that's what we call disease coding. So, and it's actually a system. So how you then pick out the final end cause of death is a little bit of a challenge, that I will tell you. We've also done what we're calling audits in our morgues to be able to see, so is it commensurate with the people who are coming into hospital? Is it commensurate with people who are dying at home? And therefore then we have verbal autopsies by the chiefs. And so it's not easy.
And how do we do it currently? How do we determine the number of deaths in the country?
So what happens is that there's an aggregation process. So we have the Ministry of Health, we have deaths that happen at home through chiefs, deaths that happen outside of home through the police infrastructure, and then we have then deaths, that happen, perhaps people who are brought directly into a morgue. And so there's an aggregation process. And the worst thing, what I'm trying to explain to you is that if you're found in a morgue, what exactly killed you?
Right.
A postmortem is needed. Not everyone goes through a postmortem sort of service. So it's a bit of a messy space in terms of trying to aggregate it, but there's been gains. We now have support through the World Bank to look at our civil vital statistics, and government as well. There's a lot of work in the background in trying to harmonize all this with Huduma number and IDs and sort of layering the whole system so that we're able to get the kinks working.
But with the approximation, give or take, how close are we to the actual numbers?
For sure, when we've been reporting, for sure, that is not the final accurate statistic in terms of our deaths. That's when we agree with you. How close are we? It depends on when we are in the wave.
50, 60?
So I don't have a number right now or a proportion, but what I can tell you is the last assessment we did of excess mortalities, it showed that we'd missed the target and we actually had more deaths. And that was during the fourth wave, when we were actually having a lot of admissions and a lot of people in ICU. Is that metrics of the fourth wave the same as the third wave? No. So it depends on what's going on. Delta was there for the fourth wave before Delta wasn't, and so there were fewer deaths. So it's a moving target. it's not target because you don't want people to die, but it's a moving statistic, right? And I can see you giggling, but the process of actually accounting for those deaths is not as easy or as straightforward as people may think.
Right. Even as we talk about COVID, then we look at a broader situation of the health system in general in the country. COVID split wide open the system. And then we were able to see, all right, probably things that the system or the healthcare system was doing well. And then unfortunately many things in which there were failures.
That's true.
What are some of the things that you saw as failures which probably need some attention?
I mean, that's a good question. There's always this statement where everyone, I've seen all the journalists saying, COVID has exposed the underbelly of the health system. And I think what we feel particularly in the Ministry of Health is that, it was a good push. It was a good spotlight on the health sector. It was a needed spotlight on the health sector. I think for us, if you look at the different, what we call the building blocks of our health sector, sort of the, should I say, pieces that put it all together, the first most critical thing perhaps is the role of the healthcare worker. I think COVID made it absolutely clear and certain to government, to ministry, to partners that we do need to invest in our human resources. And this doesn't mean that we were not aware, but perhaps in the COVID-19 situation, there was clearly a stretching of healthcare workers. And this went all the way. So I think you've all heard of community healthcare workers and volunteers. Again, their need was determined. I think you've all heard of anesthetists. I think for the first time, everyone was talking about, the super specialties, the ICU specialists. Again, a need for that was determined. And if I look back, 2019, before COVID, where we were, particularly in the ministry, was trying to invest towards UHC. So trying to get the Big 4 agenda going and the Universal Health Coverage Program going. And when we were trying to design that program, I remember people saying, we need to account for healthcare workers, we need to put some money and ensure we hire some healthcare workers. And we did, and that was budgeted for. And it's interesting, in 2020, around March, April, those resources were then converted towards what we are calling the COVID staff. I'm sure you've seen them in the counties. We had interns coming in, much like the Kazi Mtaani program. We had a bunch of about 1,000 plus interns coming in. And then we had 3-year contracts for medical officers and nurses. And what I'm always happy about, for the first time, psychologists in the Ministry of Health. Before COVID, that was a cadre that was not recognized in the Ministry of Health. Now they're recognized because of mental health issues. So some good small steps. Are we there yet? No, we are not, definitely, when it comes to healthcare workers. Are there future plans to invest more in those spaces? Yes. I think you've all seen us trying to make different moves here and there to get more people employed at the counties, in national government, and sort of tap into the unutilized resource of healthcare workers who are there. There are many unemployed nurses and doctors and the whole cadres of scheme, that are there. So healthcare workers, big lesson there. We need to put in more of them on ground, boots on ground, and invest in that space.
Second block.
Sorry, Eric.
Just finish the blocks there.
So the blocks, right. So this is like the ABCs of public health. So we have healthcare workers, and then we have what they call health infrastructure. So the brick and mortar. And I think for that, we were good. Through devolution, the past 7 years, counties have really put up health facilities. If you look back to your county, and I'm talking about the brick and mortar, you'll notice most governors invested, and we have health facilities available. When we look at, there's a matrix which measures health facility sort of density, and Kenya has met that target. So in terms of brick and mortar, we have it. Inside now the health facility, beyond the brick and mortar, a few challenges. So through COVID, a positive, and I'll keep sort of comparing for you and sort of trying to contrast for you. Positive, huge investments in lab infrastructure. Before COVID, so many counties were not able to do PCR testing, which is a background of not just COVID testing, but HIV testing and lots of other diseases. Right now, most counties more or less are able to do PCR testing. On the flip side, again, we noticed challenges when it comes to commodities, challenges when it comes to supply chain. I was talking to an old woman and I was asking her, have you been able to go to the facility and get what you need? It was at a health center, and she said, mimi natafuta daktari na mimi natafuta dawa. So for most Kenyans, when they're walking into the health facility, what they're looking for is that there'll be a doctor and the drugs will be there. In the drug space, we're still working on that, trying to improve that space, trying to make sure those commodities and supplies are available. if I scored us, that's an area that needs improvement, and we're working on it.
What makes them the commodities not available?
So again, one, of course, the basics of it is you need to resource commodities. You need to ensure that they're there. Kenya has been able to put in place what we call an essential medicines list, and this is actually a very crucial tool, much like, and I want to compare it, I want to see what I can compare it to. Perhaps maybe you'd say close to almost a constitution when it comes to managing with diseases and morbidity. What countries have done is to come up with a way of cataloging what the most essential medicines are, the drugs that are needed at different levels of care that you can't live without. Through science, we have many drugs coming out. Through lots of technology advancements, many drugs coming out. All of them very expensive. The R&D process is very expensive, and that's another lesson we learned during COVID. Investments in research and development are important in Kenya. And so you've come to learn that how do we ensure this list, this huge catalog of medicines and drugs are available always? One, the money has to be there, but two, what you were asking me before about accounting for deaths. Is the IT system, are we able to predict our consumption? Are we able to predict our future needs when it comes to paracetamol? And to do this, I have to aggregate data from each and every health facility, but not just health facility, each and every chemist within the country, not just each chemist, each and every health provider, both public and private.
I have to ask this question
not
now.
An easy task.
The Ministry of Health, I'm sure you have a department that deals with costing. Okay?
Yes, we do. The planning department.
Yes. Now, but I specifically want to refer to costing because one of the problems that I think many government ministries have is wastage. Okay? And then every time we talk to people within the counties, health is devolved, and they talk about they used X amount of money for this and the other. Now, people who specialize in costing put a face of reality to all this jargon that laymen like us listen to, and we have no idea whether what you're being told is a fairy tale or whether we don't know. So let me ask my question. Does the ministry consider it important to invest in such an enterprise? Because
completely.
Okay.
Completely. I mean, it's not just the ministry, I dare say, but government as a whole. So we actually have a State Department of Planning under the Ministry of Finance in National Treasury. And it's a whole state department, and their work is to work out the figures, not just for today, but for the next 3 years. You've heard of the MTEF cycle, right? The one that determines how governments budget for their resources. So yes, there's that. And what happens is that is then devolved into ministries. So in health, we do have a planning department, and we have our plans in check. But an interesting cog into this is to remember that, like you said, health is devolved. And so then there's need to have, again, these planning departments in all the 47 counties. And we do have them, but working those plans and integrating them together to then be able to have that foresight of the future has been a challenge. Again, work in progress, step by step, getting there. And again, why your question is so important, I've been seeing a lot on social media, Kenyans are asking. I think most recently has been the cost of ICU services. I think we also yesterday, some reports on social media that, someone is having to pay 14 million, for ICU services for, 50 days or 21 days. And I think 2 weeks before, again, Boniface was talking about the same thing. And we've had a lot of Twitter space discussions as the medical fraternity on the cost of healthcare. One thing that I'm very, happy about in terms of interventions by government is that together with National Parliament, Waziri has been able to spearhead the process of passing and moving forward the NHIF bill. And that bill, guys, literally is what you call a foundation stone that can really propel a country forward. Why? Because one, it mandates health insurance for all Kenyans. And I saw questions and, comments on, if I can't pay, who's going to pay for me? And when you look at the bill actually ensures that those who cannot pay will get subsidies from government. And we've already gotten our first batch of 1 million Kenyans enrolled who will be getting subsidies for government. Those who can pay, we're trying to put in place mechanisms to ensure that that money is put in within the fund. And then, of course, commensurate to this is that you need to then ensure the fund is more accountable, more transparent, and is agile to be able to provide those services. What that bill will do nearly single-handedly is actually manage the cost of care in Kenya. Because now you will have a payer, that's NHIF, together with all the private medical insurance companies, who are able to sit on the table with providers and determine the costs of care. And I can tell you this has been powerful in Thailand, in all the countries who have gone ahead of us in this space. This led to drastic reductions in the cost of care. And that's what we'll be working on as soon as the bill is enacted and you know that process is done in terms of legislation. You'll be seeing a lot of change. I can't wait to come back perhaps a year from now and discuss this NHIF bill and where we are, because I believe it's revolutionary. It's the one thing really that's going to set us up in terms of the healthcare system. Number two, we do actually have also a committee that is going to moderate the cost of care. So this is a joint team that will sit with the private sector, the public sector, and all the stakeholders. And for the first time, we'll almost have what we are having when it comes to fuel prices. And no pun intended, but there will be a moderation of the cost of services within the country. This is how much you can charge a cesarean section. This is how much you can charge a knee replacement. And that will be harmonized. Again, costs will come down.
Those are big things.
Big moves.
And on that note, let's just take this break. It's 7:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Dr. Mercy Mwangangi, the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Health. Time flies, right?
Yeah.
You'll be until 9 and you won't even notice.
Oh.
Keep it right here. Let's take a break. Let's see how the roads are looking like, and then we continue the conversation. Now we're actually segueing into that. So NHIF bill and the big things that it's meant to usher into our healthcare system, which also takes us to the conversation about universal health coverage.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Yeah.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
I know we're in a society where men have become very lazy. They have made people's daughters become mamafuas. You know mamafua? Yes. That you come to a man's house, maybe you went out or you've come for a weekend. You find all his shirts in his laundry basket. Yeah. He was waiting for you to
come and clean them.
His wife, including his inner garments.
Right, yeah.
Ladies, stop doing that.
Let me
Those are wifely duties, and even some wives don't
That's
do them.
literally what I was about to say. I was wondering, there's even some wives who refuse to do that.
The only way to live your best life is to create a balance between work, love, and play. The Adults in the Room is the only show on radio dedicated to educating Kenyans on how they can stay winning in life and in love. Text the word adult to 22840 to get the latest clips from Adults in the Room directly to your mobile phone. SMS adults to 22840.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and
Sunny conditions in
nostalgic
Nairobi at
ballads.
16 with lows of 14 today, highs of 27. It will also be sunny in Nakuru at 14, highs of 26 today. 25 will be the high in Nyeri, where it's mostly sunny at 15. Eldoret this morning is sunny as well at 16, highs of 24 and lows of 13. We're looking at sunny conditions as well in Mombasa, highs of 30 and lows of 24. Malindi will be sunny at 27, highs of 30. And lows of 25. 21 degrees and cloudy conditions in Kisumu this morning, highs of 29 and lows of 20, while in Kakamega, mostly cloudy at 18, highs of 28 today, coming down to lows of 15. Out in Kampala, it's mostly sunny at 18, that'll be the low for today, highs of 27. And in Dar es Salaam, sunny at 23, highs of 31 today. Joburg is sunny at 14, highs of 24 and lows of 13. While it continues to rain in Lagos at 26, we'll see highs of 30 and lows of 25. Clear conditions in Kinshasa at 22. That'll be the low for today, going to highs of 33.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. SpiceFM.
It's picked up significantly on Mombasa Road, in and outbound. But then just before General Motors, after that, you should be fine. Going to the Nyeri Stadium, however, we're going to get onto Huru Highway and it's jam-packed then until Haile Selassie. And we're seeing traffic then in and outbound from there. All right, also seeing that aerodrome connection coming into Huru Highway packed as well. Bagathi Way looks good, however, not packed until, of course, you get to that roundabout at City Mortuary. Oncoming traffic from Gong Road, not too terrible today. Getting into the city, then via Valley Road. Kenyatta Avenue into the city, not bad. Coming out of Westlands, that's a whole different story. The Thika Superhighway jam-packed as well at that nexus between them and Kiambu Road, not looking good, guys. Jam-packed completely. Eastern part of the city not looking too bad either. North Airport Road then joining with Outer Ring. That looks all right. So not too bad of a day in terms of traffic. Keep an eye on things. Help us out as well. SpiceFM KE is how you can get in touch on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's 22 minutes to 8 o'clock. Kenya's biggest conversation continues in the Situation Room this morning. Eric Latiff, Ndu Okoh, CT Muga, and Dr. Mercy Mwangangi, Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Health. Dr. Mwangangi, as we're taking that break, you had you've been beaming, but at that point now, when you're showing the future, looking at projecting into the future, the new NHIF bill, what it proposes, how it proposes to transform health insurance, and then the other work that's happening. I think this is then what would be the building blocks for the universal health coverage. Just tell us a bit about those moves on controlling costs, because as you understand, that's a big issue. Even for NHIF as it operates, if it's paying X times 5 in a private facility and only X in a public facility, that disparity is still huge. If it's going to be harmonized, how are they going to do this?
So like I was saying, I believe, and having engaged in the health sector for a long time and learned from those who've gone before us, one of the biggest things that you have to fix in the sector is how you finance the sector. And this touches on, how do you buy a service in the sector? And most importantly, how do you ensure that service leads to a good health outcome? What we're trying to do with NHIF is perhaps what you say, aggregate the resources that we have in the sector and be able to almost guarantee a healthy, good outcome when you go seek care. And this is sort of a process that needs to take place with all the stakeholders being on the table. And that is why the ministry was pushing really hard for that NHIF bill. If you open it, and I don't have it here with me, one of the biggest things, like I said, is mandating care. We came to learn that in Kenya we have, and I'll give you an example, we have people who own bodas, that's about 60,000 to 80,000, depending on your boda, who then go and buy a cover to insure the boda, but are not paying 500 shillings, i.e. $60, 6,000 shillings for their own healthcare. And this goes on even beyond the boda. I can tell you, we've done assessments to determine that there are people who own a fleet of matatus who do not have NHIF covers. I dare say, even in my own family, I've been able to talk to some people and found out, much to my angst, that there are people who are associated with myself and do not have NHIF covers. So really, I can tell you guys, and I saw a lot of noise when we were going through the bill process, people saying, why is government making this mandatory? One of the principles of setting up what you call a social health insurance fund, which is what many countries have done and done successfully, is that you have to have everyone in the pot. We're talking about UHC. The U in UHC is universality. Universality means everyone in the country. And that's the first step that this bill has done, in ensuring that we legislate, it should be mandatory. Now I hear the noise. The second thing is, okay, if it's mandatory and we have close to 36% of Kenyans who are living below, the famous $1.50, how are those guys going to get in? And I can tell you now, there's firm commitment that government will ensure it pays that 6,000 Kenyan shillings for that group. So everyone else then, therefore, has been determined to have ability to be able to pay into NHIF, and there will be mechanisms to ensure we are all in. Now, once we are all in, Another very, very key important thing that we've been hearing a lot and we've experienced ourselves as well is the issue of wastage. He brought it up. How much of those resources that are put together in NHF, even before, say, our bill, in the past 5 years, if we did a proper audit and we were able to look at the potential wastage and fraud that is there, how much does that lead to? And we've had estimates of close to 30%. 40% of leakage, and that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Now, what does this bill propose to do? For the first time, you may not be aware, but health providers, right, the doctor, right, Dr. Mwangangi, will actually be liable for participating in fraud through NHIF. So previously, we had either hospitals that would be sanctioned, and that's still there, or perhaps even any collaborators within the fund, that's still there. But for the first time, there's a recognition and a penalty. For me, myself,
for the
Mercy,
healthcare worker.
Right, for prescribing or for attempting to have done 5 hip replacements in a week, or for doing a hysterectomy in a month. And that happens, I can tell you. So essentially, that's removing a uterus from a man. That happens. And so there's actually very tough penalties within, if you go through the finer print of the bill that is aiming to stop this process. The third thing is actually the auditing function when it comes to IT systems. So you've always had us talking about e-claim systems, and I think it would be nice for you to invite Dr. Kamunyo. He's the CEO of NHIF here. He has a lot of information to share with you guys. There's going to be an overhaul of that system to ensure that, you're able to actually get a unique identifier. I'll tell you some of the cases of fraud that we see in NHIF is, one card being used between sisters. Right? So you and I, we have one insurance card and we are using it as if we are one family, right? So all those things are going to be dealt with, and Kamunyo will come and share with you all the many stories of things that we've unearthed within the fund. That's going to be super important because you'll have all the money in one pot. We need to secure the money. We need to secure those resources and ensure that they are available.
Right.
Now, the third thing that's really important is then the outcome. Remember, I talked about the outcome. You're trying to buy a service to ensure it has a good outcome. In terms of outcome, we have to ensure that when a Kenyan walks in, that they walk out happy, right? And so there's an element of quality of care. And NHIF is moving towards a process where they will pay, not just because you did a cesarean section, but you did a cesarean section that led to a good outcome. And that's different. And I think you've heard of this in the UK and in the NHS system where we will buy quality. We will pay for quality. We won't just pay for a service that you did. So, for example, we were looking at audits of NHIF some time back, and we found out that there was a woman who had undergone a hip replacement about 3 times. That means there was failure on the doctor's work. That means there was failure on the hospital's work. But guess what? We paid. We ended up paying for each and every that procedure, for those 3 hip replacements, right? So now what we'll do is we won't pay. We pay pegged on quality, pegged on outcome. And so these are big moves, again, that will change the space in healthcare. And what will happen is that there'll be a change in behavior from the providers. I think I've also seen lots of complaints on social media. You'll go to a doctor and you'll come out with a rap sheet of tests and procedures to do. And, and you're wondering, of course, there's information asymmetry. You don't know what I'm asking you to do. I could be trying to, get your DNA or sperm count or whatever. There's a reason, right? What we're going to be doing is putting in place systems of paying that actually bundle the tests. So NHIF will know if Mercy's diagnosis is diabetes, then this is a bundle of tests that would be required for that.
And not
that's
anything
what
outside
exactly,
of that.
Exactly. So there's lots of controls that we're trying to sort of fashion and think through and put
Does
in
that happen
place.
in the private sector?
Yes, in
Private
fact, much
insurance.
more. Yes. In fact, much more than you'd expect in NHIF. I would love to sit here with Tony. That's Gishuri. He's from AKI, Association of Kenya Insurers, and that whole team. And we've had discussions with them on how can we reduce leakage when it comes to medical insurance, not just in NHIF, but in Kenya, as a whole entity. And you'll notice that abuse. The issue with sisters sharing cards happens as well in private medical insurance. In fact, the insurance industry is one of the most, should I say, vulnerable industries when it comes to wastage and fraud. And so we are working with them, particularly through IRA, to try and see when you go, to seek a service, first, if you have a card that we all sort of have access to know, I have AR and Jubilee and NHIF. So that's going to be important when it comes to also how we pay the provider, right? So whose card comes in first? Is it the NHIF card or is it your AR card? That's an important sort of conversation.
Yeah.
The second bit will then to reduce fraud, right? So if they're flagging fraud on their end, chances are it's also happening on our end with the same culprit. So we'll be able to share our information and data and have access to that. But then the most important thing is what you said. The fact that I can be Dr. Mwangangi, obstetrician, and MPSHA is, would charge 200 and another hospital and another and another and another. And I've not just used MPSHA because I'm branding for them. It is a good hospital. But anyway, have different costs of care. We'll be able to moderate that and try and get that together in terms of standardization of care. So that then if you want to go and have an extra service, so you want to have the big room that has a balcony, then you pay for that. But then we're able to take care of your basic service.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we look at, when we talk about UHC now, a lot of us now in the situation whereby you get sick and what happens to be able to take care of that is contributions, Harambe's, etc., etc. So paint the picture of what it would look like when I have that card and I'm sick. It doesn't matter whether I am unemployed or whether I am at the other end of the spectrum. What does it mean then to have a card with what plans are in place and to walk into a medical facility and what will I have?
So it's absolutely powerful. I think you've one of the, should I say, most exasperating experiences is for a mother to get into labor and to need to rush to a hospital, right? And usually part of that includes I need to find transport to the hospital. I need to get myself there. I need to ensure I have everything that I need to deliver properly. The biggest mirror of what it would look like right now is the Linda Mama program. I'm sure you've all heard of the Linda Mama program. When that program was put in place, for the first time as a mother, the concern of all the costs that you have to incur by the time you go in for a delivery are essentially not there. So you're walking in, and the Linda Mama program is universal, right? So it's any pregnant mother in the country who's not within the normal NHI formal systems is able to go in and get care in a healthcare facility. That has changed a lot. We've met mothers, we've done interviews with mothers who say, that was her first interaction with the healthcare system from the time of birth, because she was able to walk in and get the care she needed. And that's profound, guys. You and I are able to perhaps access health facilities easily for whatever check. You have a cold, you run there. You have some issue, you run there. For some of these Kenyans, this was their first interaction with the healthcare system. And that's what's going to change. So we actually have a huge number of Kenyans who do not interact with the system right now for all sorts of issues and even very serious diseases. Those guys will have access. The second thing is, I don't know if you know the pains of sitting through registration and having to remove some money from your pocket before you see a doctor. I've worked in a public facility. I know what it means to see someone sitting on a bench and they're trying to sort of count their shillings before they approach the casualty. That will change. Right? Now, another important thing, and you asked me this question earlier, what about the medication? Because of how we will bundle care in NHIF, because of how we will determine for diabetes, these are the tests and these are the meds, when you walk in, those costs are computed into the benefit package. And so you will almost have an assurance that if I go to a facility, I will get my metformin and my drugs that I need for my diabetes because it's bundled in the reimbursement that the provider will get. You get? Right?
Beautiful picture.
Right.
Reality. The reality of our government and very many things, like you said, it's a moving machine.
Yeah.
And then it has also been infiltrated by people who have various interests.
Right.
So those very many other interests that are coming in, how do you make sure that they do not interfere with this very beautiful plan? The other interests, the commercial interests, the cartels. You sit in that building that's now called Mafia House. I'm sure you've felt the heat from the mafia.
I would say it's. I mean, Afia House is perhaps one of the instrumental buildings within the country because dealing with people's healthcare is, I think, beyond then financing it. It's one of the most important functions of government. One, I can tell you through different interventions and through a larger move as government, there's a realization that you have to ensure you protect public goods. You have to ensure that systems are there for accountability and transparency. You have to ensure the individuals who manage these resources are accountable and are transparent. And so there's a lot going on beyond, let me say, the Ministry of Health to ensure that these processes are put in place, particularly through the court systems, particularly, again, through the bill. Like I said, for the first time now, we're actually targeting and going, for individuals who perpetuate fraud within the fund. That was never there before in the NHIF bill. So there's moves to ensure that, there's protection of what we're trying to do. I think another important component would be the citizen. I think right now we're having more, more voices heard in the citizenry. And that's always important for any nation that's developing. And as government, we continue to collaborate with particularly CSOs and citizens and communities to ensure that they're also at the table as we design those policies and as we implement them. Will it be easy? Certainly not. Are there challenges? I think we see them every day in the country. I think if you just look back a year from now, there have been challenges here and there all over. But for me today, like you said earlier, I'm optimistic. Like I said, I've been in the game now for 12 years, and I can tell you things are dramatically different than they were 12 years ago. And so it's optimism, and it's moving forward. And of course, then having those who are duty bearers, like myself, held accountable to ensure that we move this forward.
I've been quiet because I'm fascinated by what you're saying.
I like to fascinate.
But how do you legislate against greed?
Well, that's what you call it.
It's actually beyond the Ministry of Health. And that is how the multi-sectoral approach to this thing comes into being.
Yeah, that's important. Yep.
Because all these good plans will be in place. And then greed will rear its head.
I think, we've had those philosophical musings of how do we move our country forward? And if you look at some of the moves that are there right now that are trying to be put in place, it's about having some intrinsic reflection of who we are as Kenyans. And how do we move to this nirvana that we want to get to while still needing to recognize who we are as a people and what we need to change in our culture, in our behaviors. And so I think, like you said, it's beyond the ministry, but I think it's not necessarily just responsibility of government. It's the Kenyan. What are our ethos? What are our principles? How do we move to nirvana as Kenya? And what do I need to do individually? And what does government need to do? What do partners need to do? What does the civil society need to do to move forward? Yeah.
You can be a good preacher. You've converted CT. CT is sitting here thinking, this country, there's a future. There's a big future in this
but
country.
it is, guys. I can tell you, if I could sort of give you an insider view, things are changing. The wheel is moving. It's moving forward. It might be slow, but it's moving forward.
Taking big boss moves. We know that you have a meeting that you need to rush to, and we'll give you that.
Thank you.
So 5 minutes to the end of the. You can just give us the 5 minutes so we can conclude, right? Yeah. So in those 5 minutes, with the reality of things. So UHC, we had the pilot in the 4 counties.
Yep.
We have never seen the report of what happened in those 4 counties.
Right.
So that we can then now say, let's move it to the other 43 counties. What happened to those reports?
So there's a report, and I will send it to you on email. In fact, it's a report that we have discussed in so many forums. And in the last 2 weeks ago, we had what is called the Intergovernmental Forum. This is when all the governors come together with the Ministry of Health, and we sit and we discuss the health sector. And that report, again, was shared in that forum, not for the first time, but probably the 3rd, 4th time. And I think the biggest thing is there's actually a sub-report on lessons from the UHC pilot, right? So there's a pilot report, and then there's lessons from that UHC pilot. One of the lessons was, the pilot did meet an unmet need. We had, close to about 3.5 million Kenyans who were accessing that UHC package then. And we had, wait for it, a 40% increase in hospital visits within the first month of deployment of the pilot. So it means you had 40% inflow into the health facility. And so that told us for sure there's need to work on this UHC agenda and ensure Kenyans can get access to health services. On the flip side, while we were able to pump in resources through what we call input, so we took care of, is it medicines you don't have? You can get the medicines. Is it health workers that you don't have? There they are. So we were sort of pumping resources into the input side of things, hoping that we'll get a good outcome. We came to learn that we need to have a more sustainable mechanism, thus NHIF. So everything that we're doing now is essentially borrowing from all the lessons from the UHC pilot exercise. And that was almost 2-3 years ago. Interventions have been held since then. So we moved from the 4 counties to the 47, and we actually invested in more inputs in the 47 in an interim. And right now, the plan in terms of UHC is basically to use NHIF as the implementing agency for the UHC agenda. And then, of course, to still continue with investments in inputs. You still need that lab infrastructure working. You still need brick and mortar. You still need that healthcare work. Exactly. You still need, exactly.
How about the community health workers?
So again, super important. Yesterday, yesterday or the day before, Waziri launched together with the NMS team what we are calling the Community Health Volunteers Act for Nairobi. And that's a collaboration between the ministry and partners to ensure that the community health volunteers who will be working in Nairobi will be able to get a daily stipend that enables them to work. And during that activity, what he saw is that the community health worker is so pivotal. This is your neighbor, where you live. I'm not sure which suburb you live in, but the idea would be that my neighbor, your neighbor, would actually be able to interact with you and the health system and come and check, did you get vaccinated? If your wife is pregnant, has she been able to go for her A&C services? So they're super vital. And I think that's a front step for Nairobi County. As government, we do have a bill. It's in Senate. It's a community health volunteers bill in Senate, and I think Senate actually passed it through to ensure that these guys are, formally recognized in a manner where they're facilitated to do their work. Because it's not their full-time work. So this is someone who more or less gives hours of their day or their week to ensuring that their community is healthy. So super important as well.
Thank you very much. Dr. Mercy Mwangangi is the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Health. One of the 5 women that we are featuring this week making big boss moves in government. Thank you very much for all your work you're doing in public service.
Thank you, guys.
That time when you came, it was so can we now say congratulations for all the good work that you're doing in the Ministry of Health?
Thank you. Always happy, to serve Kenyans, but also let me just thank you guys for highlighting the work that's being done in the ministry and also for calling us to be accountable. That voice is needed. Do not relent on that.
That we cannot do. Thank you very much. Keep it right here for more conversations coming up in the next hour. This is the Situation Room. It's now 8 a.m.
All right.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire. Dennis Macedo. Petroleum and Mining CS John Munyesa said there is no hope in fuel prices going down anytime soon. Responding to questions raised by the Senate Energy Committee on the reasons for the rise in fuel prices, Munyesa said various foreign issues that could not be addressed by his ministry led to the fuel hike. Munyesa also appeared to blame the Treasury for holding on to 24 billion shillings allocation that has been set aside to benefit Kenyans. The government has spent 8.6 billion shillings, a share of the 32 billion shillings in the Petroleum Development Fund, money that is allocated to help Kenyans during inflation. The challenge of spending those funds, which are collected by KRA on behalf of Treasury, is occasioned by Parliament's failure to approve its expenditure. West Pokot County Deputy Speaker Francis Crop has called on the county's residents to turn out in large numbers for voter registration, which enters its 3rd day today. Francis said this is the right time to change the polling station if one needs to do so, adding that West Pokot County always had a small number of people registering to vote due to drought challenges, where nomadic pastoralists sought water and pasture in neighboring Uganda, which then forces them to miss out on the registration exercise. However, he urged them to find a way of being registered and exercising their democratic right.
eneo kame katika hii kaunti wamehamahama. Wale ambao wako katika boda ya Kenya na Uganda wamehamia Uganda katika kutafuta malisho, na kwa wakati huu nawaomba tuweze kujiwekea program ili wenye wanachunga leo wengine waende wajisajili ili wawe wapiga kura, alafu wale wakisha jisajili warudi wachunge ng'ombe ili wale wenye hawajisajili waweze kuja kujisajili pia.
At the same time, he has warned young people against being incited by politicians as the general elections approach.
Tusibaki nyuma na kuwa wale tu ambao wanatumika kusababisha hasara, kusababisha vifo, kusababisha majina kuharibika, kusababisha upotovu wa nidhamu ama mwelekeo katika jamii. Tuwe watu ambao tunatumika kupata haki, kupata uongozi unayofaa. Na ndio maana kila wakati baada ya mwaka 5 wananchi wanapewa nafasi ya kureview kuona yule kiongozi aliyechaguliwa wakati ule anafaa ama hafai.
Kapsaret MP Oscar Sudi has expressed satisfaction with President Uhuru Kenyatta's response after being linked to having stashed money outside the country, according to the Pandora Papers. Speaking in Keseso, Singishu County, Sudi called on President Uhuru Kenyatta to ensure that all senior government officials are investigated to determine the source of their wealth when he returns to the country from the United States. Sudi has also accused some government officials of continuing to steal public property and cause the national economy to collapse.
Na nilifurahi zaidi wakati nilisikia rais akisema ameenda kula Amerikani, akirudi anataka sasa hiyo lifestyle audit iendelee, tujue ni akina nani wengi wale wengine wenye wako na pesa kule nje. Hakuna mzazi ako na haki ya kwamba mtoto wake ataenda shule kwa sababu ya uchumi imesorota katika taifa letu. So mimi naomba rais ukirudi kutoka Amerikani msifanye kazi nyingine. Tafadhali sukuma watu watuambie sasa ni nani na nani ndio marafiki yako mwenye mko na pesa kule nje. Alafu sasa mkuje yetu ndogo ndogo hii.
Kangundo MP Fabian Muli said the government should remove economic barriers, especially the curfew, to give Kenyans the opportunity to develop and improve their living conditions. Muli said following the mass vaccination of Kenyans against COVID-19, Kenya has a good chance of reviving the deteriorating economy by giving people more time to work.
Uchumi ya Kenya imekuwa ngumu and serikali pia anajua kupata pesa ya kuendesha mambo ya serikali imekuwa ngumu. Vile vile wananchi mambo imekuwa ngumu. Kwa hivyo imefika mahali tunasema wananchi wetu wa Kenya, nao mahali tumefika, we have seen many Kenyans have got vaccination of COVID. Na vile tunasema we need to sensitize more, we need to encourage more people wapate vaccine. Tunataka kufikia mahali kikomo ya hii mambo ya curfew na water feud na tufungue economy yetu iende 24-hour economy. Jumanake hii COVID mahali imefika haituachi.
Speaking in Kangundo, Muli also challenged the government to devise strategies to protect the people from the effects of drought and famine. Now, as schools are expected to reopen next week for the second time, head teachers are concerned that lack of funds will make their work harder. High school teachers have complained that the money distributed last term did not include the requirements of the Form 1 students. According to Kahi Indimuli, chairperson of the Secondary School Association, the schools were required to use funds allocated to other students. The government distributes the funds every term. The first term received 50%, the second 30%, and the third 20%. First term received 17.47 billion shillings, 2.26 billion shillings were allocated to primary schools, while 14.85 billion shillings were allocated to secondary schools. Teachers have complained that the money is not enough and that many schools will suffer come second term, especially considering that some parents have not paid school fees. Now, Athletics Kenya President Jackson Tuwei has confirmed that Kenya has submitted a bid document to host the 2025 championship. Tuwei feels that Kenya's history of producing world-class athletes gives us a real chance of becoming the first African host of the global showpiece. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, still seeing a little bit of Mombasa Road traffic this morning. The ICD route looking pretty good, as is the southern bypass heading out towards that Langata direction. It's not too messy today. It's actually looking quite good, guys. Let's look at Likoni Road. That whole circuit is the word I'm looking for. From industrial area out then towards Enterprise and then out onto either the southern bypass or Mombasa Road. That is looking pretty good as well. You'll be on it for a few minutes, but it will not be too terrible trouble this morning. Langat Road, jam-packed. Ngong Road also building up. Let's look on the eastern side. Jogo Road building up, going towards Kaloleni, out onto Landis Road. Quite jam-packed coming out of Westlands. The thicker superhighway, my goodness, this morning, absolutely jam-packed. It's then joining with the madness that's coming off Kiambu Road and then getting onto that at Muthui Square on into Pangani. Coming out of Limuru Road, everybody's meeting in the city centre this morning. And this is when traffic hour has begun. About an hour late today, but we're in the middle of it, at least on those sides of things. Let's keep an eye on things. Not too bad for anybody this morning. Let us know should it get that way. Keeping fingers crossed that it doesn't. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
It's
the only
8
way
after
to
8.
start
Very
your
good
day.
morning to you. How are you doing? Kenya's biggest conversation. This is the third hour of the show this morning. We're here until 10 a.m. this and every weekday morning. Philomo Africa is asking, please let us know your Bomet frequency. So, the Bomet frequency would be close to which one? The Nakuru one city or the Kisumu one?
Kisumu.
That is 102.5. The 102.5 frequency from Kisumu, or you can also try the 96.0 frequency from Nakuru if it may reach some parts of it. That's too far. Beyond Narok.
Kisumu is nearer.
Okay, 102.5. 102.5. That's our frequency in Kisumu. If it's in Mombasa, it's 87.9, 94.4 in Nairobi, 96.7 Eldoret, Nyeri, 90.9, and Malindi, 97.7. We are live for the next 1 hour on KTN Home. Very good morning to you who are watching us on TV now. We're also live streaming the show on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and www.spicefm.co.ke. City Muga has the day's proverb.
A stranger does not skin a goat given as a fine in a chief's camp. Goat, stranger, chief's camp, fine.
A stranger does not skin a goat given as a fine in a chief's camp.
Yes.
Okay. What do the chiefs do with those goats? When they impose a fine and somebody pays the fine, the goat is brought to the chief. So what does the chief do? Is it community property or is it for him and his family?
It's community property.
Community property.
Okay, so
Decide when the chief has guests, he'll slaughter
he
the
keeps
goats,
the
all of us
goats when the chief is welcoming the neighboring chief.
Or maybe when another one is brought, the two goats frolic about and they have offspring.
So they now
have a goat farm.
Proper goat farm.
You know, there was a time in the history of this country where Harambes were mandatory. And I recall my grandmother telling me that what would happen is the chiefs would visit you. They didn't. This is how it was voluntary. They didn't wait for you to come and volunteer. They came and helped you volunteer. So depending on what they thought you had, they would take a chicken. They would ask for maybe a certain capacity of
goro of maize millet.
Yes. But everybody contributed.
Right.
Now the question you've asked is fundamental. Nobody ever asked where the amalgamation of all these things actually genuinely ended
what
up.
the chief did
Yes.
with the harambe.
Yes.
Or like when you have Harvest Sunday in church,
Yes.
and then people bring goats, bags of maize, oil, blah, blah. Nobody really asks the question.
But
Wait
those
a
ones you
minute,
can
when
tell.
we leave service, what happens? Are they
They're going to
shared
do an auction.
in church?
Yeah. The whole idea of having that Harvest Sunday is at some point they're going to have an auction.
You're supposed to raise money. And in some cases, it is understood that the the prelates would
Yeah.
divide it among
Yeah.
themselves.
Yes.
It's not something.
It's either to benefit the
priesthood,
clergy,
yes.
or if it's for Harambe, and then people have brought in all these
to
things
raise
do.
money.
Voila.
It's understood.
This so also
Uh-huh.
I'm saying. So now the chief, all these things that are brought to the chief. Now, when the community comes to sit in the presence of the chief, he can decide now to share said goat. Share now the staff will maybe make a meal for
That
us
never
to share.
happens.
Let's just assume.
So
and
the
be
chief
happy.
decides to gift, for example.
Chiefs, by their very nature,
Receive, don't give.
Yes, precisely.
So let's just assume and be happy.
They were an
that,
end point. It arrives, it ends
it's
there.
finished. Don't ask questions.
Going out again.
Receive.
Finish.
What
Not
they gave
give.
out were findings,
Advice.
justice, things like that. But goods which have arrived at the chief.
Then we share with you.
See, but they have arrived. Why do you want to leave when you've gotten to your destination?
To the goat, said he.
Yes.
Hey. Okay, that's an interesting proverb. That's an African proverb.
It is an African proverb.
We're still waiting for the Teso to speak to their Emormor, and we'll be given a Teso proverb.
Well, tomorrow I will look for another proverb from Western Kenya. Yes. And I have many, by the way.
You have many?
That list, that particular...
Somebody who's listening and they may be from the Pokomo community, it would be nice to have a Pokomo proverb.
It would be delightful to have a Pokomo proverb.
So, in the news just now, we have heard about the Petroleum Cabinet Secretary. What's his name again? John Munyes. Mr. John Munyes is quoted as having said, this whole story of fuel prices are coming down. Not soon. It's not happening soon. Various reasons that he's giving. But there's the issue of was he quoted in context, out of context? What's happening in the National Assembly? The National Assembly is sitting, the Committee on Finance and Planning is sitting to review the various components in the oil fuel price. And the main components that they're looking at are the taxes and levies. So there's already a proposal among that they're discussing. They haven't presented it yet, but they're discussing. First, let's cut this VAT from 8% to half of that, 4%. Let's also look at excise tax. How can we make sure that excise duty does not rise? Can we revert to last year's excise duty? Let's look at some of these levies that are levied on fuel. What do they mean? Can we make sure that, can we look at what can be reduced and what cannot be reduced? And then let's also look at the other components. The other component is the margin that is given, that is allowed, maximum allowed margin for oil marketers. It's important to say maximum because it's between 0 and 12 shillings. The oil marketers can decide to do a margin of 2 bob. But okay, they're given a margin of 12 bob. The committee is also mulling, having a conversation and reducing that maybe by some 2 or 3 shillings. All those things are being considered in the National Assembly. And then the CS for petroleum is saying, look, cost of fuel may not come down. Is he talking about cost of the landed cost of fuel? Based on the trend that we're looking at internationally, it doesn't appear like we are going to see a reduction in the global oil prices. And so the landed cost of fuel is not likely to come down.
Based on what he was saying. So, you ask in what context did he say this? He was speaking, so finally he appeared before Senate. Finally. Those summons that had, the threat that had been passed through, he finally decided to show up before Senate. And he said, look, in fact, along those lines, he's ruled out a reduction in the price of fuel in the near future. He's saying that this was speculated as a possibility and that because of the fact that these fuel prices are determined by external factors, it'll be very difficult to say that by October or by January or by June that we will see these prices coming down, right? What he's quoted as saying is that the cargoes will close on the 10th of October, which is a couple of days from now. And therefore, it is at that time we will know whether they are going to go up or down. So it is not rocket science. It is not something I can say I will do because it is a formula that determines the price. He said, while saying this, look, guys, brace for tougher times. Even as these conversations are being had in Parliament. right? And you may be given some kind of hope that things will actually reduce. I'm telling you right now, it might actually get tougher. There's a low likelihood that fuel prices will actually come down. He's gone further to blame the National Treasury for failing to release a certain amount of money that would have assisted in the stabilization of prices. And 24 billion shillings was meant to have been released that would have helped to stabilize some of these prices. The paying out here, regulating here and there, that didn't happen. So while I'm telling you that fuel prices will likely not go down in the near future, I'm also telling you that we could have done something about it. But because we did not get this money from Treasury, then that is not possible. So look, after being away from the presence of Senate for a very long time, he's finally come out to say, look, we're talking about the reduction. There's nothing I can do. The formula has already been set. There was money. So that's number one. Formula has been set. I cannot come here and tell you that my office will, I can't tell you that my office will do something about it and then we will see a reduction. It's not going to happen, number one. Number two, there was some money that we should have received from the National Treasury to be able to stabilize some of these things. Now, without that money, stabilization cannot occur. So I cannot even tell you, in fact, for sure, in the next few days or in the next month, it is not going to happen. Now, having taken all of those things into consideration, he is going to put the icing on the cake and now say, in fact, brace for even tougher times because we cannot determine this based on what we are seeing. So if you were looking for any kind of answer, this is the answer now that you have been given. Let all these talks continue. Let the deliberations go on. But there's a formula in place. And right now, we cannot do anything about it.
Which is why I'm bringing in the context. Obviously, if you change some of the variables in the formula, then you affect the outcome, the result. If the formula ensures that the tax and levies component is changed, then the fuel prices will come down. You see, for us, we don't care whether the fuel, we're not looking at that at landed cost only. We're looking at landed cost plus what else happens after that. We don't go to the port of Mombasa to pick our oil at 60 bob. That now you tell us if they've bought the oil in the refineries in Dubai or wherever at 70, we are going to buy at 70. If they bought it at 40, that's not the only thing that impacts on our pump prices. It's the other two components, tax and the margins. Now, if you change the tax, then we are definitely going to see a change. Now, I can understand him saying international global prices of oil are, determined by the market. The market sets its own prices, and the people who are going to buy from Kenya are going to buy in that whole market, and they will buy at market price. So I cannot say, as Kenya, we are going to be buying our oil at $2 a barrel or 2,000 shillings.
Because it's already set.
Because that is, I cannot go and dictate in that market. After all, I'm even a small player. But here, locally, there's a lot that can be done. And that's what we were even looking at. What is this that a committee led by Gladys Wanga, what are they doing? What are these conversations that they're having? They've asked for more days so that they can even look at demurrage fees and see whether that is also something that they can deal with. It's a long dance. It's everybody appearing to speak their own language. And in the end, it's not serving the Kenyans because we don't get to see whether our government is speaking coherently or not. The CS Petroleum says one thing. CS Energy says the other thing. MD IPRA says one thing. Members of the parliament say a different thing. Members of the Senate say a completely different thing. Or they appear to be saying different things when they mean the same thing. It's just confusing.
It's confusing to a degree, but a certain degree. In reality, it isn't confusing. It's just that we're accustomed to hearing lone voices from what we may refer to as the leadership class saying something as ridiculous as the things we're hearing right now. The fundamental difference is that they're all saying it at the same time now, okay? This ministry is saying this, the ministry in charge is saying this. Those who are supposed to oversee any such matters before they actually get to implementation are now behaving as though they encountered this matter at the same time that we, the unsuspecting and consuming public, also encountered it. And they're all saying the same thing. I I consider it to be tragic. I consider it to be tragic in this sense. When leadership is seen or it is operationalized as something that involves people looking for excuses to justify what they ought to have prevented in the first place, okay, then I have to ask myself the fundamental question. Not where we headed. I can see where we're headed, okay? I'm not even going to ask the question, how did you get here? Because I know how we got here. It is clear how we got here, all right? My question is, what do we do with such people? What do we do with these people who we assumed would provide us with leadership and are clearly not providing us with leadership? Because I get the impression every time leadership is required, it's like they're asking us what they should do. And we're saying, but excuse me, you are the ones who are supposed to help solve these problems. That's why you are elected. Why are you coming to ask us again? What we want is very simple. We want to be able to live within our means. We want to be able to, for instance, afford things that keep us alive. We are having enormous difficulty just staying alive. Now, when you hike the price of petrol or fuel, then essentially what you've done is you've put that issue of livelihood beyond our reach. Now, if all these discussions do not end up with a sustainable situation where the cost of living has gone down, then all these discussions are a complete waste of time.
Will they? Because I'm seeing that we've been after the 14th of September, right? Which is essentially when all this hullabaloo began. When we saw those high prices is when now there was the uproar and people started asking questions, having to pay about 8 shillings more than what you were spending just the day before. Is when we saw all of this. And then everybody, went quickly to work to start to have the conversation. Will these conversations bear fruit? Will something happen? Because it seems as though there's this fire that was burning and then John Munyes has basically just taken the candle stopper and put it out and said, look, you can be talking all you like, but at the end of the day, there's nothing I can do about it. So these conversations that have been taking place for almost the last 3 weeks now, will they bear fruit? If they will not bear fruit,
I think so. I'm still stuck on that. I'm looking at it from the context. It's the context. If you look at it from one context, there's what Munyes is saying, which is true. Looking at the global trend, the global oil prices are on the rise. That will continue rising, and there's nothing I can do about it. Now, does that mean that you cannot reduce the cost of fuel at all? No, it doesn't. That's why he even goes ahead to say there's a Petroleum Development Levy Fund, which is supposed to be helping to cushion this by looking at subsidizing the margins somewhere for the oil marketers. Now, that fund is empty because the National Treasury did its own Houdini Act. Context of what Munyes is saying, I'm looking at it from the point of we are buying oil in a global market. He has no control over that. The trends are showing it's rising, so that could look at it from that point. Does that end there? No. Is the conversation that's happening in National Assembly likely to impact this? Yes, it's likely to impact this. It's likely to impact this. But also, let's also look at this National Treasury. So there's a fund. Every time you buy fuel, there's some 5 bob that goes into the Petroleum Development Levy Fund. Fund levy. One comes before the other. What is this money supposed to do? It's supposed to be drawn at such instances to stabilize the prices.
Yes.
By looking at where to put the subsidy at. And mostly the subsidy will come in the traders. So if the marketers are getting their subsidy, that means that money is not going to rise. We are retaining it at a certain level.
Yes.
The National Treasury then, according to the information that has been presented to the National Assembly Committee on Finance and Planning, has spent that money on doing other things. What did they do with the money? They released 2.2 billion shillings to the Ministry of Energy. They released 1.6 billion shillings to the Ministry of Petroleum. And 18 billion shillings disbursed to the Transport and Infrastructure Ministry for SGR costs.
And all this is fuel levy money.
This is that fund that's supposed to be.
It's the fund that was now supposed to help with the stabilization of prices.
So it is fuel levy.
Yes.
Yes.
That Petroleum Development Fund levy,
yes,
that is the one that has been drawn into all these things. Munyes is telling the committee of the Senate that, you know what, I don't have access to that money because Ukuri Atani ate the money, basically.
They didn't give us.
There's no money in that fund. What is the procedure for drawing down this fund? One question that's critical. Is there a laid down procedure for how the National Treasury and the Ministry of Petroleum can access this particular fund? One of the things that I keep emerging here is that there's no clear procedure set aside for this. What triggers how the money is accessed? What determines where the money goes? It's not clear. They've, of course, enjoyed that lacuna because then they're able to take the money wherever. Okay, so this one goes to SGR, we can say SGR is petroleum. Where this one goes to the Ministry of Energy, we can say energy is petroleum. Okay, this one goes to the Ministry of Petroleum, we can say petroleum is petroleum. Comes back into, I think, just
yep.
Dishonesty.
There's
some dishonesty somewhere.
There is, but there's a silver lining, though. You see, what the minister has clearly come out to say appears on the surface to point to, one, a certain element of dysfunctionality within these ministries. Because it is clear from what has been reported that the ministry, the treasury, can decide unilaterally to distribute the money as they see fit.
Right.
Okay? Even when you know what the money is actually intended for. They can decide. Okay? Now, whether they can actually decide and do precisely that, I don't know. But I do know that every so often, money is taken from ministries that seem not to be doing anything with it. Here I'm being facetious, or seem to be slow in utilizing it, and it's to be distributed elsewhere. From a purely finance position, I think money can be moved around. But
with a plan.
There's always a plan. But what I'm wondering is, how then am I expected to actually understand and believe that there's a dysfunctionality where you are all working towards a common goal? Ministry is trying to raise money through KRA to try and ensure that the functions of government continue. Okay? Now, one of the things that you want to ensure is that the citizenry are able to afford their living and are able to function because they are the ones who actually provide you with this money that you require. It's called taxation. Okay? Now, the moment you put fuel prices beyond the reach of most people, or you make it expensive, you know what people will do? If you wake up at the hours that we wake up and come to work at the hours that we come to work, you will find that there aren't very many people on the roads ordinarily. But whenever fuel prices go up, the number of people who are on the road at that time increases. Walking. It means they are going to the place of work or the place where they expect to get work early in the morning. Now, how do you explain to me, a simple Mwananchi who's a citizen of this country, that all these things that you are doing and the discussion we're having is for my good? How does it help me?
Let's take a break and we'll continue this conversation after the break. Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. It's 8:30. We're live on SpiceFM. We are live streaming the show and we are also live on KTN Home.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
If I'm found guilty, there is no problem. I'm willing to serve. I have no problem. Jails are meant for human beings.
They say a society gets the leadership it deserves. If you have a corrupt, crooked and rotten society like we have in Kenya, then of course they will get that kind of a leadership.
I think the president should dissolve parliament. That's the best solution at this moment in time. Dissolve parliament.
All of you go home.
Yes, we all go home.
How are we encouraging other people who might have new and creative ideas? Young people who are making money without any government help. They are just buying their own bundles. They are going on TikTok and making money. KRA is coming after them.
I've been in parliament for 15 years. We have been unable to pass the gender law. And yet no presidential candidate is talking about it now. Because we are fake. The truth is, all the men refused to vote for that law.
What did Sonko do to Pumwani Maternity Hospital?
Yeah, he
with
cleaned
his
it up.
own money.
Cleaned it with his own money. That was him as an individual.
Yeah. And I did not say he was cleaning his own money. I was saying he cleaned
foot, mouth. foot, mouth. Eric.
Okay.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
From 2019, she has stayed with 6 different people. You know, we are saving money. There's no need for him to be renting in this side.
And I'm renting this side.
No.
Yeah.
And sometimes this is an avenue for women to con men. Let me just be very honest with you people. Today we are talking about performing marriage duties while you're still dating. Why are you paying rent and this is not your wife?
Yo.
We need to start holding each other accountable. For those people who are dating, learn to buy your own bed.
The only way to live your best life is to create a balance between work, love, and play. The Adults in the Room is the only show on radio dedicated to educating Kenyans on how they can stay winning in life and in love. Text the word adult to 22840 to get the latest clips from Adults in the Room directly to your mobile phone. SMS adults to 22840.
Sunny conditions in Nairobi at 19, highs of 27 and lows of 14. It's mostly sunny in Nakuru at 17, highs of 26 and lows of 14. 13 will be the low in Nyeri, where it's mostly sunny at 17, going to highs of 25. Eldoret is sunny at 17, highs of 24 and lows of 13 today. Looking into Mombasa, it's sunny as well at 26, highs of 30 and lows of 24. Malindi also got the memo because it's sunny here too at 28, highs of 30 and lows of 25, while Kisumu is cloudy at 23. It'll go to highs of 29 and lows of 20 with 20 degrees and mostly cloudy conditions in Kakamega. It'll go to highs of 28 and lows of 15. Kampala is sunny at 20, highs of 27. We're looking at sunny conditions at 25 in Dar es Salaam with highs of 31 and lows of 23. While in Lagos, it's raining at 26. It'll go to highs of 30 and lows of 25. We're looking at sunny conditions at 15 in Johannesburg with highs of 24 down to lows of 13, and sunny in Kinshasa, highs of 33 and lows of 22.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Okay, so it still continues. So that whole what we're looking at, that entire industrial area circuit that was looking quite good, now seems to have clogged up. So Jogo Road feeding onto Lusaka Road then connecting with Likoni onto the interchange of Mombasa Road is moving quite slowly. Ngong Road also one of those. Langata Road looking much better in some parts only, but then it builds up as you get towards Bagathi Way then towards the Ngong Road roundabout. That not too bad, at least for now. So we're still looking at normal traffic happenings on the roads this morning. Still hot and heavy on the Thika Superhighway. We'll keep taking a look at that, and hopefully it gets much better as we go through the morning. A few minutes past 8:30 shouldn't be too bad after this, but we'll keep an eye. Help us out to do so on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Kenya's biggest conversation continues in the Situation Room this and every weekday morning. CT Muga Ndu Okoh. And I'm Eric Latiff. We are looking at this Petroleum Development Levy Fund. If you look at how much we are paying at the pump every single day, the amount of money that goes into this particular fund is how much again?
24 billion. Supposedly.
Is a lot of money. Is a lot of money. Now, this money basically, the fund was established so that it can help cushion consumers against rising fuel prices, and it then is supposed to serve as a subsidy, and the subsidy is distributed to the people in the supply chain so that the cost of fuel at the pump does not have to rise, because the subsidy has subsidized some of these costs. How much are we paying? 5 shillings and 40 cents a litre in July last year from 40 cents previously. Now we pay 5 shillings and 40 cents a litre at the pump, it goes into this particular fund. It was boosted so that it can help serve as a subsidy. Now, a lot of money was raised in the last 1 year, and we saw for some months, despite the fact that landed cost of fuel was rising, the cost of the pump did not change. It remained at the same step for a while. And then suddenly, last month, it went up. And the explanation for this was now we're no longer able to offer the subsidy to the oil marketers to cater for that. Why? It turns out that the National Treasury has distributed these funds here and there within government. Some money has gone to the Ministry of Energy, some money went to the Ministry of Petroleum, and some money went to the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure to cater for some SGR costs. When the CS for Petroleum appeared before the Senate the other day, he said, that money could have come, but now it's not there. And the question that you're asking, CT, before we went to the break, by the time Munyes is going to Parliament and saying, the Treasury has depleted the fund, are they not in communication?
I mean,
as the two cabinet secretaries.
Don't we have a cabinet? Don't cabinets have meetings? Don't they talk about these issues? How do you have a situation where something has happened and it's like one ministry just does its own thing, another one just does its own thing? Huh?
And then when they're going to speak, it's like they actually did not. That question you have to ask the National Treasury, because I don't know. Everybody is basically saying that question you have to ask so and so.
Look, in as much as that is a worrying thing, that, it would appear as though cabinet that's supposed to be working together is then working in silos and nobody's actually communicating one to the other what is actually happening. What is a little bit more dizzying for me is that this amount of money that was earmarked for a particular process then has been used for something else. And for me, that's the bigger issue here. That how can an amount of money of 24 billion shillings that essentially is supposed to solve this problem that is bringing all these debates in Parliament currently was used for something else? So this whole hullabaloo that we're currently going through for the last 3 weeks or so essentially would not have been so hot right now, right?
Yep.
That something could have been done to cushion the same Kenyans that Parliament is supposedly fighting for right now. That money was used, and the casual manner with which it's being discussed is what is even more. 24 billion shillings. We use a little bit of it here, we use a little bit of it here, we use a little bit of it here. So you know what? We don't have it.
There's money that have been set aside to buy pencils for the child when they're going to school. So the child comes, Daddy, I want pencil. That money.
I use it to buy something else.
Yeah. I bought milk. She took milk.
So what about my pencils?
We'll see what else to do. That's a casual manner in which
we're
just
like no
this.
big deal. Munyes just told the Senate, I was supposed to have 24 billion, but National Treasury used it, used it for something else.
Yeah.
So, in fact, prepare for tougher times ahead. Casual manner, no problem. We don't have. So what are you going to do, right? We don't have it. So we cannot stabilize prices. We don't see them coming down. And if anything, I'm going to tell you, prepare for tougher times ahead. The casual
and we are
manner...
every time we are consuming, we are still raising money to this fund. Every time
you go
it's
on
to
your bill.
There's no
5
day.
shillings and
It's
40
on
cents
your
per
bill.
litre.
There's no day that money doesn't go into that fund.
Yes, every day. And talk about the millions of Kenyans on a daily basis who are spending and money goes towards that fund. So then you have to ask yourself, okay, even if there was an acceptable explanation as to what these funds were being used for, it's just going by as though it's the wind that's blowing from east to west and it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So the very job that you're being called to do or then explain as to what happened, you wanted me to come. I've come. I've told you. The money that would have been used to be able to sort out the issues that people are making noise about, I don't have. And if anything, it might get worse.
And
so all this noise you're making...
Have you seen any of the committees of Parliament summoning the CS for Treasury? It's like the CS for the National Treasury, just like we were told by Senator Muthui Kilonzo Jr. 2 years ago. The National Treasury is the fourth arm of government.
They'll do as they want, when they
And
want,
you will not
and you will not ask
them
questions.
a thing. Nobody is summoning Ukuri Atani to go and explain where is the money for the fund. Nobody's asking. No. In fact, what we're trying to see is how we can negotiate and reduce, this levy here, this levy there. Maybe touch one or two things here and there. This particular levy, we are not discussing touching this levy.
You see that lackadaisical attitude? That's the problem. You see that attitude? That attitude, that's the problem that countries are facing today. It's not because, like you say, you get more money, right? There's a fund, it will continue to be, the kitty will continue to be filled. But that attitude whereby you don't need to explain, you don't need to do the due diligence, you don't need to actually do your job because after some time, this noise that you're making is going to die out. It's going to die out, right? It's that thing that continues to be the bane of the existence of problems across governments. Across governments, whether you want to look north, south, east, or west, that's the problem. That I don't have to explain anything to you. After all, there was a fund, it was used. What again do you want me to tell you? And it's like there's a special place reserved for certain people within these governments who don't have to explain anything to anybody, but you just have to take it as it is. Meanwhile, the grass continues to suffer. The grass continues to dry out and die and burn on a daily basis. Meanwhile, you're supposed to be working for that grass, but you don't. The attitude whereby 24 billion shillings gone in a puff of smoke, maybe to things that were truly legitimate, but it is not what they were meant for. The thing that it was meant to curb is the thing that is being made noise about the most in the country at the moment. And it could have been avoided. But okay, so I have this fund, right? Let me just use it for this, that, the other thing. The thing what it was meant to do, we'll get to it when we get there. When we get to that point, maybe we'll deal with it. But here we are at the point, and it's still not being dealt with.
You're being generous. I don't even think the thinking gets to that point because
I'm tired.
How do you determine that what you use the money for is more important than what it was intended?
No, not that it's more important. It could be legitimate. That's what I'm saying.
It's not.
It could be legitimate. Not that it is more important. It's okay, but my thing is the thing that it was supposed. Do you not see the detriment of this thing? That Parliament has been in meetings the last 2 weeks. Eating allowance because they're sitting and meeting and asking questions to people that don't matter. The person that you're supposed to be asking the question, as per where this money went, that should have been able to cushion Kenyans today. You're not calling him to ask or answer those questions.
And the order here is, the order has just, it's contained in this report. That's a headline in the Business Daily today, isn't it? It is. That they have ordered the Treasury to refund this money. The report has not even been presented to the floor. So it's not been adopted even. But before you even order, so you just ask them, where is it?
Where did it go? Where is it?
How do you just casually, take money from me? So the next thing we're going to have is the road maintenance levy being used to do something else.
Then cities
road maintenance levy will be used to buy new planes.
But this road
maintenance levy will be used to subsidize Kenya Airways.
The discussion about this expressway was determined 2023. That's when the road will be finished. So, any other information that you're given in between, that is now just having a chat with themselves. and you're supposed to see it in that light because the reality of what they're saying, my friend, is very easy to determine. Go on the expressway and look at it. Just look at it. Look at various sections. Ask yourself, at the pace I see this thing moving, is it very likely that this thing will be completed by June next year? The answer will be no. Is it likely it will be completed by August next year? The answer is still no. So, 2023. When they tell you middle of the year, they mean the middle of 2023, not 2020. These people are engineers. They know very well what can be done by what period of time. They know.
It is not okay for this kind of behavior. It is not okay. Whether you are the chief priest of the cabinet, doesn't matter who you are. It is not okay for things to continue happening in this manner. It is not all right. Because I don't know if I'm seeing it differently. But there was uproar. If you ask me, the action that is being taken in Parliament today, a large contributory factor to that was the uproar that came about as the result of high fuel prices from the 14th of September. That is why people started running helter-skelter. Let's have a meeting. Let's open blah, blah. Let's sit down and start to talk about these things, right? Let's summon people and ask them, why have you not come here? Say, landing costs, talk about excise duty, talk about VAT, reduce it from 8 to 4%, remove this, that, the other thing, talk about demurrage. And you started having this conversation because the ordinary Kenyan was crying, right? In your investigation, or by virtue of the fact that the individual that you summoned came and told you, we actually have a fund. This fund is supposed to cushion Kenyans from this problem that they have been uproaring about recently. So far, so good? Yes.
We are together.
Now, you should be asking questions about why that fund was utilized for something different from its initial point. But we don't hear that question. So it's like you're chasing your tail. You're running about and there is no solution in sight. If you ask me, you're going further by taking a mirror and you're holding it up to Kenyans and saying, you guys are the solution to this problem. It is you. We are not able to do this. We can't ask the right questions. We can't go in the right place. We can't do any of these things. We can't. We're not able. We can't ask the right questions. We cannot summon the right people. We don't want to. It'll happen with fuel today. It'll happen with development in another place tomorrow. It'll happen with education the day after that. We just had a conversation today about universal healthcare. It'll happen with that tomorrow, whereby funds are supposed to be allocated to make things better for Kenyans on one place, and then they are not. We could be simplifying the matter quite so. Indeed, we could be. However, the basic principle of this thing, that there was a solution in sight, but the very fuel, no pun intended, of that solution has been used for something else.
You know, there's actually no limit to how much can be said on this particular subject. And what I mean by there's no limit is because on the one hand, I'm looking at yet another exemplification of what impunity looks like. At a different level, I'm looking at a supposed dysfunctionality of the cabinet, where cabinet secretaries just willy-nilly make decisions and do whatever it is they wish to do, and there doesn't seem to be some communication between them. And then thirdly, I look at this discussion and I ask myself the fundamental question, in all honesty, when we say that the supposed leadership class lost the plot, I mean, is it an extent that keeps growing? Because why is it that the very subject of what should benefit the Kenyans, why must it always become so convoluted? Some thinking takes place, a good plan is brought into being and said, look, we have this problem, and this is, in the event that this happens, this is how we are going to mitigate against it. Okay? And then the complete opposite happens within a very short space of time. Now, when we then have a problem where our disbelievability factor is on the increase, where the government says they're planning, and we say, yeah, we've heard. And the government says we're going to do this, yeah, we've heard. People say, but you people, you must have faith. Okay, faith in what exactly?
Faith where?
What exactly do you want us to base our faith in? We are willing to have faith. But what do you want us to base this faith on? What is this thing you want us to hold on to believe that you say what you mean and that you will do what you've said you're going to do? If on the one hand you start something, you do it, and then before, just when you're getting comfortable to know this is in place, something else happens that throws it into complete disarray. You know, there's been this debate of the sort of leaders we ought to choose and whether we choose the right leaders. You know, all these people that we choose, all of them, without fail, they have the capacity for doing what it is they are required to do.
Yes.
It's not that they don't have the capacity. But somehow the fundamental guiding religion that people seem to embrace when they get into leadership is a religion based on greed. Because I cannot understand how sensible, normal human beings rational people who, when you talk to, are rational and clear-minded, are behind decision-making processes that seem so odd and so counterintuitive. Maybe one of you can explain it to me. How does that happen?
Personal interest trumps everything.
Completely.
It trumps everything. They know, like now, the reason why they are discussing all these things about, Parliament, the Treasury should bring back that money, the Treasury should do this and the other, is because they all know they have not set the regulations for managing this particular fund.
Yes.
The Petroleum Development Levy, there's no regulation. So when the money comes in, how do you get the money out of this fund? How do you use the money? In the absence of regulations, that's why now Kuria Tani can look at City, at uko na shida gani? Give you a couple of shillings here.
Let's just help you. Then the people come and ask you later, okay.
Ni ya kununua mafuta.
Exactly. Then the people come and ask you later, this 24, Oga, how far now? 24 billion. Where is it so I can help Kenya?
Sorry,
tell you,
I fueled City's
which
car.
I gave City.
Subsidized City.
I gave Eric.
And
what again is
we
the problem?
subsidized SGRs of fuel. We subsidized the petroleum, petrol. Energy subsidized.
Then
energy.
they come and ask you, where is our fund that you were supposed to have done something from? I say,
you see where the problem
the
again then will rise. And then not long from now, you're going to be told that barring a court order, you're going to be asked to pay more money through some tax or the other.
Yep.
You see, to raise more money to supplement the money that had already been raised and was used for something that it wasn't purposed for.
So all this is just
to
talk.
supplement the supplement.
Yes.
All this is just talk. It really doesn't matter. That's what I'm telling you. The self-interest that you're talking about is really what is important here, because the people who are talking, standing up, making noise since 14th of September, and I'm going to keep talking about it because we will soon be at 14th of October, a month, and the conversations have been happening.
Yep.
Just talking about anyhow, not really care. They know very well that this thing is not going to happen. So I beg, it is time for you to just put on that thinking cap and look at this thing very, very well. It's noise. They have fuel allowance. Do you think they know? As you were here shouting, what
Next week, EPRA will do what EPRA is supposed to do.
Do you think they know?
They will look. They will
Yeah.
look. What was the landed cost? All right. So what are the costs of bringing the oil via pipeline? Okay. So what is the cost of transporting from depot? Okay. So what is excise duty? This much. What is
Input equals
blah,
to.
blah, blah. This is the price
the
for the
fuel.
next 1 month.
And a month would have passed. They've talked. They have eaten allowance for 1 month.
Yeah.
They've had the conversation.
They've asked for
been
more days.
talking. They've asked for another 7 days. 14 days.
They've asked
now.
for 14 days.
They've asked for
which
14
means
more
that
days.
the committee of planning will not have gone to Parliament to ask Parliament to approve the reduction of VAT
They
by
will
14th
still
of
be
this month.
talking by the time 14th rolls around and the new prices have come about.
And do you remember what we're told regarding some of these allowances? Part of the reason why some of them were introduced was as an incentive, remember?
Yes.
Because
to make sure that people are sitting.
They actually attend. Meaning, there are people whom we pay money and they actually don't do what they're supposed to do, because to do it, they actually need to be in Parliament.
Yes.
Parliamentary work cannot be done in your house.
It's vexing you, Abi?
No, it's vexing me very much. You see, if you say
It's not just vexing you. Even
Yes.
Patrick Agoyason says, apart from committee sittings in Parliament, is there a sitting allowance for MPs apart from their salaries? Of course.
Of course, plenty.
If so, guys, that house is nothing but a money-making area for a few, and that's why nothing good ever comes out of it.
When you read
It's
the questions that were being asked by people in these committees, the only expression I have is I have to hold my head and ask myself,
Boy.
really hold the back of my head, yes, and go, why, surely. Now, if this person is asking these questions, then where are we?
Where are we?
Eh?
Nobody has to tell you to your face that you're a fool for you to think that you think they're a fool. They don't have to come and tell you you're a fool.
They'll just show you.
They'll show you. They will show you that I can make some noise here and there. These Kenyans will think that I'm working for them, but I know what actually I'm doing.
It's 5 minutes to the top of the hour. Lamek Mokua says the government is an octopus and the various ministries are the various arms of this creature. So there is no way the arms can act independent of the body. Yeah. Okay. So this is where we are as Kenyans. Good morning. Thank you very much to those who've been watching us on KTN Home. Switch over to SpiceFM. The conversations continue up to 10 o'clock. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Have you seen them? Am I lying?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone in Wasingishu was asking me what channel is Spice FM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
What
you.
a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. A very Swiss temperatures.
The government speaking different languages. It's like the Tower of Babel. And all of them are supposed to be serving you and I, the citizens.
You know, it's almost as though, you know how the play is being acted, right? And the different characters have to read their lines. It's almost as though folks sat in a room and read their lines and said, all right, we're going out to perform. Are you ready with yours? Are you ready with yours? I must be ready with mine. Let's go. Let's go. Give this performance. The audience will be enamored, you know, and with this whole performance. But we know at the end of the day, they'll clap for us, we'll take a bow, and we'll have received our fair due.
They get onto the stage, and, you know, actor CT, who is acting this character, goes and acts that character. Kumbe CT is acting Romeo in Romeo and Juliet. You are acting a different Macbeth.
You are doing Henry VIII.
Yes. And we've all just come to... You're doing your line, and I'm wondering...
And you asked, what's the commonality here? Shakespeare.
Yeah. Shakespeare.
Hey, my goodness. You know, you can't tell me Parliament doesn't know what Treasury doesn't know what Cabinet is doing. They don't know. But they just come and perform for you Kenyans.
No,
and then you expect, and then you clap for them.
The real gem.
And say, come and perform again.
You actually have a situation that cannot be enacted without the say-so of Parliament.
Yes.
It's enacted. Then it goes back to Parliament.
And then they say, what is this?
And said, wait a moment. How did this? And then, and you're thinking, hey.
Where were you? Then they say, in fact, let's remedy this. They start asking questions.
Now we need to meet and talk about it.
In fact, we are summoning you. We start asking big questions. And we now say, give us 14 days. You know,
this formula that you're applying, how do you
arrive at it?
Who told you to do a formula?
Let's have 4 instead of 8.
You're the ones who set the law.
Wonder, they always say 7 days.
They're the ones who set it.
So why are you doing a formula?
Why is there a formula?
I'm only implementing the law that you passed.
Who?
You. Okay.
Give us 14 days to talk about this.
Man, you
completely surprised.
You know, there's something.
Why is the fuel price so high? Well, it's tax.
And
tax.
You guys passed.
You guys passed.
It came. Yes, it came to you. First of all, this committee are the ones who dealt with this.
Yeah. What do you mean? Yeah. Well, so why is it high? But I should be asking you that question.
Because it's you who passed it. I only implemented what you passed.
In other words, all this talk you people are doing actually is not going to yield anything.
Yes,
so can I go back to my work?
In fact, you called me.
Theatre of the absurd.
Yeah.
This is it,
man.
This is the theatre of the absurd.
Yes.
Kenya's biggest conversation continues into the next hour. We'll open up the phone lines 0719-012-600 and SpiceFM KE on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Good morning. It's now 9 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. A man died on the spot after being hit by a train in Bogobogo, Kibarani in Mombasa County. The freight train was heading towards the port of Mombasa at around 5 a.m. It is reported that the deceased, who sells water, was drunk and despite being honked at by the train, headed not here and was eventually hit. It is, however, suspected that he may have been killed elsewhere and body thrown on the track, considering that only the head was crushed by the train. Cases of people being killed and then thrown on the railroad are not uncommon, as the perpetrators use the tactic to lose evidence. Leaders in Trans Nzoia County have called on the DCI to investigate some government officials who ask for bribe from Kenyans who are 18 years and older before registering to obtain national identity cards. The Chief Executive Officer of the Ministry of Water and Natural Resources, John Mengwa, cited the problem as a major obstacle for young people to register for the necessary documents. This comes at a time when 4,000 Kenyans in the county have not yet gone to collect their national IDs at the chief's offices and at service centers.
Tumekuwa na shida kubwa sana kwa mambo ya vitambulisho. Vijana wanasema wanaitishwa pesa kidogo kidogo ili waweze kujiandikisha kwa vitambulisho. Vijana waandikishwe bila kuitishwa chochote, maana mtu akifika miaka 18 ni haki yake ya kujiandikisha kwa Mkenya. Wengine hawajaenda shule, wengine hawaendi kanisa. Sasa kuitisha ile upatizo ama kuitisha cheti ya class A, hiyo itasaidia namna gani? Bora mzee wa mtaa amesema huyu ni jana namjua, apewe kitambulisho.
He used the occasion to urge the IEBC to extend the registration period so that it can reach the target of 6 million people. According to IEBC Chief Executive Officer in the county, Lazarus Chabi, approximately 78,026 new voters are targeted to register in the county among the over 1,069,842 Kenyans who will be registered in the Rift Valley region. The IEBC aims to have 26.9 million voters by next year.
IEBC wako wana register watu wapya. Target yao nationally is 7.2 million. Kwa hiyo muda ambayo imepeanwa ni muda kidogo sana, haingetosha. Pia tungewaomba waweke transfer, maana kwa miaka 5 watu wamebadilisha makao kwa nia moja ama ingine. Ningehimiza vijana wa saboti. Kiongozi mbaya anachaguliwa na watu ambao hawahusiki katika uchaguzi. Ni wakati wenu kujisajili uweze kuhusika, piga kura na kuchukua kiongozi ambaye wewe unapenda na ambaye wewe unaona atatusaidia kama nchi yetu.
The Finance Committee in the National Assembly, which has been investigating the reasons for the continued rise in fuel prices in the country, has been granted extra 7 days to complete its investigation. The Wanga-led committee is asking for more time to investigate new allegations that the cost of storing fuel at the port before shipping could have an impact on fuel prices. Speaker Justin Muthui approved the request, and now a full report is expected to be submitted next week.
The committee received new information regarding demurrage charges, which has a bearing to the retail cost of fuel. In this regard, Honorable Speaker, the committee wants to inquire into the matter of demurrages. Honorable Speaker, it's against this, therefore, that the committee is seeking your leave for extension of the period by a further 7 days.
In last week's session, it was noted that the only way to reduce some of the taxes, including VAT. The Kenya Union Party, founded by West Pokot Governor Professor John Nyeri Okoh, has been officially published in the Government Gazette, even as new parties continue to be formed ahead of the general elections. Speaking to Radio Maisha, the party's deputy chairman and South Pokot MP David Kosing said it is time for the Pokot community to have their say at the national table.
Katika gazeti rasmi la serikali, Wakenya waliona ya kwamba chama kipya ambacho kinaitwa Kenya Union Party ama KUP kimesajiliwa rasmi. Hizo wakati zote tangu uhuru wa Pokot hawajakuwa na chama chao ambacho kinawaweka pamoja. So kila wakati mtu akichaguliwa kwa chama kile kingine, labda kwa mfano chama ya Jubilee, chama ya KANU, chama ya Kenya, chama ya ODM, hivyo ni vyama vya watu.
According to David Kosing, Governor Nyeri Okoh will be the party leader. The leaders are expected to come from various parts of the country, while urging the West Pokot County leaders to turn out in large numbers to join the party.
Wale wengine ambao tutaleta on board katika taifa hili la Kenya watapata pia viti. Mheshimiwa Kamama kutoka kule Tiati atapata pia kiti chake, na kwa hivyo wale wabunge wenzangu ambao sasa walikuwa wanaongojea, kwa sababu wale ambao tuko katika bunge hili la taifa walikuwa wanasema wanaongojea kwa hivyo chama ianzishwe ndiposa wakuje nyumbani. Mimi ningependa kuambia wao sasa chama kimekuja, kujeni nyumbani. Senator wetu pia mimi naambia chama sasa kimekuja.
On the international scene, and fear continues to spread in Afghanistan after the Taliban killed 13 members of the Hazara group. Among those killed was a 17-year-old girl who was shot during a shootout between the Taliban and the Hazara group. On August 20th, 300 members of the Taliban invaded the Kid region and killed 11 members of the Afghan security group. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
We are still in traffic hour this morning, and we're seeing a lot of it on Uhuru Highway, in and out of the city. Mombasa Road still continues, a little bit of an issue here and there. But not too bad. Also on the Southern Bypass, inbound, very slow here and there, but nothing too terrible, at least not for now. And it looks like it'll phase out in a short while. So we still see traffic on Uhuru Highway all the way through and through, and then joining with Langata Road via Airdrome and then getting into the city. Other than that, where else are we seeing the drama? It's reducing significantly on Kiambu Road, but increasing on the Thika Superhighway. There must be something going on there. Hopefully we can find out. Will you tell us if you see it? SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
7 after 9. Good morning. How are you doing? We are on to the final hour of the show, and CT has the day's proverb.
A stranger does not skin a goat given as a fine in a chief's camp.
Stranger does not skin a goat given as a fine at a chief's camp.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's a good one.
CS does not go around allocating money that is intended for fuel subsidy to SGR.
He's no stranger. Money for SGR is money for fuel subsidy is used to fuel SGR.
Yes.
Where?
You've heard me quote this song.
Yeah.
Kenya yetu ni nchi ajabu. Those who sang that song do not know just how profound that particular song actually is. We are a country of wonders. I mean, the logic, the thinking, the occurrences, you look and you're bewildered. You're completely bewildered. But I'm bewildered because I'm thinking of all the energy that goes into the song and dance that we are so often entertained with. And I'm thinking, if this energy was actually spent on what it's intended for, to ensure that the livelihood of Kenyans are actually improved, so that Kenyans can actually have the lives that they all want to see, where their children can go to school, where they can afford food, where they can, all these things. How far would this country be? And then you,
very far.
And then you listen to the amounts that even the president acknowledges is planned on a daily basis, 2 billion shillings a day. And you ask, even when we say we don't have money in the country, it's not true. We do have money. Because other countries that have been plundered in the way that this country is plundered actually grind to a halt. You suddenly find that their own exchange rate in terms of the currency vis-a-vis other currencies on the stronger currencies on the planet is so ridiculous that you actually realize this country can't actually function. We haven't gotten to that phase yet. So is it that those in positions of leadership want us to get to that stage where we are actually genuinely broke? Where the shilling now exchanged for, say, $1 is the equivalent of 2,000 Kenya shillings.
Is it at that point now when all this drama will stop?
Yes, or is it 10,000 shillings? $1 is the equivalent of 10,000 shillings. Is that where the leaders want us to get to, where then we realize, actually, guys, we're in a bit of a pickle here?
How bad do you want it to get?
Yes, how bad do they want it to get? They have a citizenry that are willing to discuss things and talk about things and at best complain. Instead of understanding that these are good people with whom you should work hard to ensure have better lives. No. They're understanding fools who you need to take for granted and who you need to exploit further.
Yes, take full advantage of them.
Yes.
Having Dr. Mercy Mwangangi in the room earlier this morning, there are a number of things that she talked about. She talked about, yes, the challenges that are still being faced by government as it seeks to do many things. Just from the simple things of just the logistics of moving vaccines from the airport to people's arms. Issues here and there, it's moving, but yeah, there are things that are being done. But also she talked about some of the things that are contained in the NHIF bill that was recently passed by Parliament. And she called it revolutionary. She said, look, with this new law, what we are doing is revamping the National Hospital Insurance Fund and making it a part of the central cog for UHC by making it everybody have access to some form of health insurance. That is number one. And not just saying that those who are willing contributors to the fund are the only ones who benefit. So the NHIF bill, as passed by Parliament, now mandates everybody who's above 18 and who is not a dependent of somebody else to contribute towards NHIF, and then you also get access to services. The other things that, like she explained, will then happen. But the basic is, it's not mandatory. Once the president appends his signature to this and assents to the bill, it would then become mandatory for everybody to contribute to NHIF. Increase the kitty. If everything works as it should, NHIF that works well. The cost of healthcare is looked at and harmonized, either in public, private, or faith-based hospitals. It's all harmonized. The cost of medication is all harmonized. Then it means that you can walk into any health facility with your NHIF card as long as you are an active contributor, and you will be able to get access to healthcare. A huge percentage of the cost will have been taken care of.
Yep.
Of course, depending on whether you're going for some top-level private facility where you need to top up. But if you just go to the basic ones, you'll be able to get the basic facility. The question, though, is, and this has even been happening on social media, is it right to compel everybody to contribute to NHIF? Because there are many who say, why are you forcing me to go into this NHIF thing? I want to have my own private insurance. I want to stay the way I am. I will go to hospital, I'll remove money from my pocket and pay. Why must I be compelled to join NHIF? Do you support that move?
I do. And because what you're looking at is socialized healthcare. And the one way in which because what you're able to do is then provide healthcare across board to all citizens of the country, not a few here, not another. Because remember, we're talking about health in order for you to be healthy. And in the case of illness or, accident or such, to help you then recuperate. That's what it is. It's socialized, that everybody comes together and makes a nominal contribution. But what it allows is that you have one payer, and government then is able to make sure that you walk into any health facility in any part of the country and you get free care. Now, free care, of course, meaning that you had previously contributed to it in form of taxes. That's what we are saying. Because, number one, the poor situation of health right now is that many, many people cannot access. What did we hear today? There's some people whose first connection with the healthcare system was when a woman was going to have a baby.
Yep.
This is an adult woman, right? We're not even talking about the teenagers who might get into hospital because they were pregnant or such. An adult having to get a first interaction with the system is when she's having a child, right? Any other disease that would have come along, they find a way to get it. And we're saying that you're most vulnerable. You're sick, you're aged, etc., you're young. to have a platform upon which anybody can get this care because of the fact that you have been able to contribute at some point is actually a good thing if managed well. But that you need more people on board to be able to get this done. I think it's a beautiful model of how it can actually work. The guarantee, though, then has to be made that these taxes then that are being contributed will make sure that they go on to the end. And I can understand that it flies in the face of what Kenyans have seen historically in terms of what do you do with money that is then contributed? How do you make sure that it's actually doing what it ought to? But the model, the blueprint that you set aside is a beautiful thing. If followed well and followed right, you would see things like the Harambes. Right now, how many are you contributing to? Right now, for people who have been sick and are not able to take care of their hospital bills. So we are saying everybody come together, contribute this nominal figure, and then make healthcare available, accessible to everybody. So it doesn't matter if you're going in for dialysis, it doesn't matter if you're going in for surgery, you will be able to get this healthcare because everybody has contributed. And the more people there are on the platform, then the guarantee is stronger that you're able to deliver this healthcare. I think it's a brilliant model, and I think everybody should be encouraged to. Now, if you can't encourage and get people to accept, make it mandatory.
There is that whole lack of trust in government. For example, just listen to what River Road is saying. One should pay from their own pocket. Shida ni hii. NHIF, UHC, they'll all be targets of corruption, and politicians will push them to failure.
NHIF, even before it was revamped and turbocharged, worked. The abuse that is being spoken of has always been there. And Dr. Mwangangi also referred to it very directly. It's not that it hasn't been there. And it isn't that the ministry has not understood the need to try and mitigate against it. The issue of contribution and the participatory nature of it is perhaps best exemplified not by UHC or NHIF, but by the taxation system. If you look at how we tax our people, you earn a certain amount of money. Our taxation system is what I would call progressive. The more you earn, the more you pay. So when they call it pay as you earn, I think it's appropriate. It is pay as you earn. Okay. Now, in some parts of the world, part of the reason why the social welfare system works so well is incomes beyond a certain level. You will find that beyond a certain level, let us say, for every 20 shillings, you may find you're actually paying 17 shillings tax. So you only retain 3. Okay? Others, less. But what it means is every member of society is able to contribute not only for themselves, but for those who are not able to. And why I refer to the taxation system, because it does that. If you look at the trillions that we supposedly collect, we say that more than 60% of that money is contributed by probably 20% of people, but they are actually institutions and industries, right? Now, it is a fundamental understanding that many people who run countries have. It's not something complicated. It's not something we need to reinvent. Now, the same thing and the same logic, in my mind, seems to be what is being used for NHIF. But now, they're using the pooling system that people use when they talk of insurance. Meaning, the greater the number of people who contribute, one, the more sustainable the system is. And the basic understanding is there will never arise a situation where everybody who contributes requires the service. Okay? And even when you require the service, it doesn't mean you're going to require it for the rest of your life. It does, meaning it balances out somewhere. What should take the fore in the discussion should not be the mandatory element. It should be an element.
The benefit.
Yes. And convincing people and understanding what it is that you're doing by contributing. That, you may not need it. You may be able to afford your own insurance or a private insurance. But there are others who cannot afford what you have. And because your means are more than theirs, you will be helping contribute to this.
Indeed.
Now, break it down. These are numbers we keep talking about. If such a system actually did work, it means you no longer need.
You don't need to go into these Harambes.
Yes.
You wouldn't need to call one. You wouldn't need to attend one.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that is very important to raise here is what she also talked about, that a committee is going to sit down and determine the cost of any service in healthcare. So they'll come up and say, if you are going for this particular procedure, this is how much a doctor should charge. This is how much a health facility should charge. This is how much it should cost between this range and this range. Such that those high disparities where you go for the same procedure. In some areas, elective CS is 500,000 shillings. In another hospital, elective CS is 5,000 shillings. You go to that NHIF, one NHIF is looking, okay, so from 500,000 shillings, even if I just say I contributed a fifth, it's 100,000.
Right.
100,000 in that other health facility, which is 5,000, Bob. Those are how many people? So many. So
100 people.
Once they harmonize that, then even if you're able to afford private healthcare, a huge chunk of your bill is still going to come from NHIF because you contribute this amount of money from NHIF, and NHIF, there'll be the harmonization of how much is NHIF contributing, how much is private insurance contributing towards this particular bill. It will also be harmonized. So it removes away that whole argument of, me, I can afford help, private help. Why do I need to pay? Why? No, you can't. You're still paying that private healthcare, so why not just pay for this other one as well?
Less.
And it's going to cost you less.
Yes.
And it will give you much more access to services countrywide. So that whole discussion is what we want to have this morning with you. 0719-012-600. What do you think? Do you support that move to make it compulsory for everybody to contribute to NHIF? Do you support a move to make it compulsory for everybody to contribute to NHIF so that then you can have a bigger kitty and NHIF supporting many more people, actually everybody in the country? And those who are considered to be poor and get into that bracket, the legally poor, the government then is also going to be able to subsidize for them. But everybody else, as long as you have an income and you're not considered poor, you pay. The Crypt says, good idea. However, some private hospitals accept NHIF only if you are a civil servant. Will you also mandate such hospitals to offer services to non-civil servants? I guess so.
Yes. This is it.
That's some of the reforms in the NHIF bill actually are on that. Right now, NHIF has also all those many schemes. We have a scheme for civil servants. You have a scheme, I don't know for who. We have a scheme for the other. Teachers. The scheme for civil servants, of course, is lucrative because they're paying more and they have access to more services. So you go to some private facilities actually today in Nairobi, and the first thing that you see is even a special desk for civil servants. You come in, you're a civil servant, you have your own special desk. You will be, because they know this is cash. Immediate cash. NHIF is going to foot 100% of this bill. You, Eric, come into the facility. You're not civil servant. You sit there. NHIF is going to pay maybe 20, 30, 40% of this bill. Then I'll be haggling with you for the 60%. I don't know whether you're going to pay. You see, the civil servant, they know. Walk in, walk out, money, clock in. So some of those things are the issues that, yes, we need a lot more clarity on how they're going to handle them. But the overall question stays. Do you support this move to make NHIF contribution universal and compulsory? Karanja in Naivasha is on the line. Good morning, Karanja.
Good morning, Eric Latiff and City.
Good morning,
Karanja.
Now, let me first of all commend the work done by Massimo Ngagi as I don't know the PS. He is a PS for the
CAS.
For the health,
CAS.
CAS for the health, eh?
Yes.
Now, if it becomes mandatory for each and every person to contribute for the NHIF, I think there is no problem. Now, I myself, I'm being deducted 1,200 every month for the NHIF services.
Yes.
Now, this is where I have the problem. Whenever I visit where the outpatient, the hospital that I have for outpatient, when I am being treated and consultation and everything, then I'm being treated. These are the drugs that we have in this hospital. Can you now go can you now go for the other and buy somewhere, or you buy at the same facility, or you buy the same medicine for the same facility?
Yeah.
Then you give them cash.
Yeah.
Is it a reality? Surely. Another problem that I have seen. Mwangagi has said very well for the Linda Mama initiative.
Yep.
I myself, I remember I am O positive, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
My wife is B positive.
Mm-hmm.
When she conceived, there is a drug called the anti-D that is supposed to be given.
Mm-hmm.
When I go there for her delivery, I'm told you have to pay 6,000 for that anti-D. It is not included in the NHIF card.
It's not in the Linda Mama program.
Yes, it is not included. You'll be told. No. This one is not included, my friend. So you have to dig your pocket and pay for this. Another thing, I remember very well my dad was born in the year of 2012. Now, I went into the hospital. Now the mother has already delivered. Now I went to the hospital and I say, this is the guy that was delivered. And I give everything. Only to realize that the child was not on the child was not covered. And they have done it earlier. Now, what is the problem? I think another issue is...
What do you mean the child was not covered?
Okay.
So when the child was born, the child was not registered?
It was not the one that was born. It was a dad born. Nilienda nikapatiana hii birth certificate nikapatiana na jina yake ikaandikwa kwa NHS, isn't it?
Okay, huyu third born sasa.
Huyu ndio third born. Sasa wakati nilienda pale kwa hospitali kutaka hii NHIF sasa imukirie. Niliwaambiwa huyu kijana yako hajasajiliwa. Wakati nilipiga makelele nini hata karibu we ensued on bros with somebody there. I am talking of NHIS offices in Naivasha here. Now after a very long tough running, even if we exchange some bros, let me tell you my friend, now the guy say, oh, wacha tuangalie, leta hiyo. Alafu wakaangalia wakasema sorry, we are very sorry. Your son was captured in another somebody alikuwa anatoa hiyo NHIF. Sasa jina yake tumempata. Sasa tulete ndio tuweke. Let me tell you Eric.
Yeah.
They are most in NHIF unless Mase Mwagangi sweep up the whole route. Aleta watu wengine wapya.
Kuna ukora huko ndani.
Kuna ukora mwingi za most, I tell you. Alafu hata saa ingine mama yangu sasa ako na diabetes, unaona? Na ako na hiyo kadi ya serikali sijui ilikuwa inaitwa Universal Health Care. My mother is 82 years old. Sasa uangalia kienda kwa hospitali anaambia hapana, mama, hii haitumiki. Wewe uambie vijana wako walete pesa ndio itumike. Do you see? Na yeye ako na diabetes anaambia ati hii mama, ati hii sasa unataka hii kadi kusimamia ndio ulipe hii nini? Ndio uchukue dawa hizi za diabetes. Hakuna, wewe enda mama, ndio vijana wako walete pesa. You see? That is a card.
So that was the card for the pilot, Karanja. Which county was your mom? Was she in Nyeri or in Isiolo, in Machakos or Kisumu?
My mother is in Nakuru County at a place called Moro, Turi.
In Turi?
Now,
and she had the UHC card.
Ako na hiyo UHC card, lakini akienda kwa hospitali anaambiwa hii kadi.
Alitoa wapi UHC card?
Alipatiwa kwa chief. Alienda kwa chief kwa sababu is one of the anachukua hiyo pesa za mama wazee, akaambiwa shika hii.
It's for the
alafu baada ya hapo akienda akienda sasa kwa hiyo kadi anaambiwa hapana, wewe mama aenda bia vijana wako walete pesa. Hii haiwezi simamia wewe kwa hii dawa ya diabetes. What is this? Mwangaji should put his house in order. Ndio sasa akuje aongee maneno UHC ama kila mtu mandatory atoe hiyo pesa. Thank you very much for a lot of your time.
Thank you, Karanja.
Thank you very much. Asante sana.
All right, so you've heard from what Karanja is basically talking about is that those things that you talk about, chinks in the armor. Things are just not working here and there. There's no clarity of information. So if, for example, his mom is among the beneficiaries of the government program that supports the elderly. So are those people in the health facility saying that it only covers for certain services and not all services? Should we just make it very clear? What does it cover when you have this particular card? Well, the question we're asking is, do you support the move? The bill has been passed by the National Assembly, the new NHIF bill that wants to mandate everybody above 18 to be a contributor to NHIF. Do you support this? Let's hear from you. Good morning.
(24/7) around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
And all we're in a society where men have become very lazy. They have made people's daughters become mamafuas. You know mamafua?
Yes.
That you come to a man's house, maybe you went out or you've come for a weekend. You find all his shirts in his laundry basket.
Yeah.
He was waiting for you to
come and
are
clean
you
up.
his wife? Including his inner garments.
Right, yeah.
Ladies, stop doing that.
Let me
Those
tell
are
you.
wifely duties, and even some wives don't
That's
do them.
literally what I was about to say. I was wondering, there's even some wives who refuse to do that.
The only way to live your best life is to create a balance between work, love, and play. The Adults in the Room is the only show on radio dedicated to educating Kenyans on how they can stay winning in life and in love. Text the word adult to 22840 to get the latest clips from Adults in the Room directly to your mobile phone. SMS adults to 22840.
No, this wheelbarrow, how can you give people wheelbarrow? His party symbol is an umbrella. Is he distributing umbrellas in Makueni?
Have you been told if we don't lock between 10 to 4, this is what we're saving?
You try and call them, the same person who was in your house every day, because they know you are influential and you will give them votes. Call them after 1 month and see if they'll pick up their phone.
Don't tell your member of parliament that you want him to come and build a school, you want him to come and do a hospital. That is not the work of the member. Now that we have devolution in this country, this resources should go to those devolved units.
You have to have strong, independent institutions. And I mean, you have to have police who has the right to take the biggest town in the country and question, why did you do this and that, and send them to court if necessary.
Joel in Kericho, good morning.
Salama sana Eric, habari ya asubuhi.
Salama kabisa. Mbunge wako ni nani?
Anaitwa Seriousness Maritim, hapa ni Ainamoi.
Seriousness Maritim, Ainamoi.
Yes. Sasa ile juma nampambia yeye nini? Amadise aende. Asante sana.
That's it.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Sunny conditions in Nairobi at 20, highs of 27 and lows of 14 today. In Nakuru, it's mostly sunny at 19, highs of 26 and lows of 14. We'll see lows of 13 in Nyeri, where it's mostly sunny at 19. We'll go to highs of 25. Eldoret will see highs of 24 today. Sunny conditions currently at 19 and coming down to lows of 13. In Mombasa, it's cloudy at 28, highs of 30 and lows of 24. And in Malindi, partly sunny conditions at 29 with highs of 30 and lows of 25. We'll see mostly cloudy conditions in Kisumu at 24 with highs of 29. It'll come down to lows of 20. And in Kakamega, it's mostly cloudy at 22, highs of 28 and lows of 15. In Kampala, mostly sunny conditions at 22, highs of 27. We'll see highs of 31 in Dar es Salaam, where it's mostly sunny this morning. Joburg is sunny at 17. We'll see lows of 13 and highs of 24. While in Lagos, sunny conditions now after the rain at 25. We'll see highs of 30. Kinshasa will be mostly sunny at 23 with highs of 33 today. Out east into Beijing, it's raining at 11 into early afternoon, actually late afternoon, highs of 13 and lows of 7. And in Paris, it's sunny at 10, highs of 17 and lows of 8. While in London, sunny conditions rule the skies at 11, highs of 17 and lows of 10. And we'll wrap things up in New York, where it's cloudy early Wednesday morning at 17, highs of 21 and lows of 17.
Spice up your life.
Okay, still some traffic in certain parts of the city. Gong Road, still a thing. At the roundabout coming in from Bagazi Way, some traffic there. There's a build-up just at the dip. Also Huru Highway, then we're going out towards the city, feeding in from Langata Road, also Aerodrome, Bunyala, going down towards Haile Selassie. That continues this morning as well. We're looking at Jogo Road. Still quite full as you're going towards the roundabout at Landis, out towards Kamkunji. It still continues on the Thika Superhighway. My goodness, today it's not letting up at all. It's done on Kiambu Road, not too bad, but slowly moving along into the city. So let's keep an eye on things, but I think we're dulling down on traffic hour and should be out of that soon enough. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE through the day or text on 40127 to keep things moving through this Wednesday.
Spice and everything nice. All right. Okay. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Minutes to 10. Do you support mandatory contribution to NHIF? The NHIF bill basically mandates that. It says that everybody above 18 who is not a dependent of somebody else must contribute to NHIF. At Bibirioni says, Bibirioni is a place.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a place called Bibirioni.
Where is that?
Somewhere in Remuru.
Is it near Ironi?
It is somewhere past Ironi.
Bibi Warironi.
Actually, is it past Rironi or is it? Yeah, I think it's past Rironi. So it's called Bibirioni. But just before you go to Uplands, it says it can only be mandatory when mechanisms to cushion all the poor, the indigents, the widows and widowers, pensioners, all vulnerable communities are put in place, or else it will not work. Remember, these are the ones likely to fall sick.
Well, see, it's because of that this is being done.
Now, so he says, once you have mechanisms for identifying those and then making sure that this government that is removing money from roads to can actually end up paying its contribution to NHIF. If you have a mechanism for making sure that these people get their money contributed by government to NHIF, once that is workable, then you can now ask everybody else to contribute.
That it actually gets there.
Yes. Otherwise, the people who most likely will fall sick, and this is this group of people, they'll be going to hospital and they find their card, yes, it's active, but the government is not receiving. It's not sending money, remitting money to NHIF, so NHIF is broke, so it will not be able to cover the people.
It's an irritating reality, but it is a reality all the same.
I suspect it's the same thing that Karanja is talking about.
Yeah, because what we've dealt with historically is the same thing.
That card for the mom has not been active for a while because government...
And the card, upon receipt of the card, it guaranteed you just that you would be able to walk into a facility and then get treatment for your condition, right? Now, if we're historically dealt with issues whereby, the card doesn't work, I can't get one for the baby, two sisters are sharing the same card. If you don't have the infrastructure set up to make sure that these things don't happen, you see, the thought, the bill, the idea. You're right, CT, it's aspirational in the sense that this is your utopia. This is where you want to be. But there's so many things that are necessary to have it in place. The people you have, I don't think it's actually going to be an issue to be able to rally up people and say, pay your X amount per year, because currently people are spending more than that. The people who need this healthcare right now, even if you say pay 10,000 shillings a year, people who are vulnerable today, who are diabetic hypertensive, who have kidney issues, they're paying more than 10,000 a year, n'est-ce pas? They're paying this in these health facilities anyway. So now, it's not going to be a problem when you're telling them, look for this money and just pay on this platform and we can take care of all your health needs. That's not going to be the issue. The issue is going to be in the mechanics of working this thing.
Yep. Delivering the service.
Delivering the service is going to be the problem. before we even start getting to, they talked about the facilities being there. What did she tell us? The facilities are there, but now we have a challenge when it now comes to the stocking of the facility.
Just like
right?
like Karanja was saying. So you have an HIF, it's working, but then you go to a facility, you're told, all right, so this one, we don't have the drugs available. The NHIF will pay for what is available here, but you have to go and still go into your pocket to buy the medicine at a local pharmacy. Or even in the hospital's pharmacy, but this medicine is not catered for in NHIF. All those issues, if those are not aligned and people just get frustrated, then it just becomes a whole different story altogether. Because what's the point of having this NHIF card if I'm still going to spend so much money looking for medicine up and down?
It's not going to be a hard sell to deliver the dream to Kenyans. It's not going to be an issue doing that. What is to deliver the reality is what is going to be extremely difficult, because you have had historical representation of failure over and over and over again in the very mundane things that I show up with a card that's supposed to have been activated, it doesn't work. That two people are using the same card. That I've had a child supposedly on NHIF and doesn't exist. This, that, the other thing. I mean, if you can't figure out those little threads, this whole garment.
It brings the whole thing down. I've got two Johns on the line. John in Nyandarua, John in Nairobi. Let's start from Nyandarua. Good morning.
Morning, Latin. Morning, City and Duko.
Morning, John.
Good morning, John.
Yes, I'm fine, yes.
I'll forgive you for that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, then. Now, this idea of compulsory contribution of those who are 14 is a good idea. But you see, the problem is those who are 18 are unemployed people. So I don't know where they will get money to contribute from. These are people mostly in college or at home unemployed. So I would suggest that they should amend it to make it that those who are 18, between 18 and 25, should be covered by the card of their parents. Because between 23 and 25, this child has already gone through college and is making some money here and there for his or her upkeep. So they should be... They
so
should
move that age bracket up from 18 to 25.
25 at least. Exactly. Because that age bracket no money.
That's true.
Secondly, that contribution is important to make the NHIF financially stable. Because the NHIF, in fact, is as it is something very important to the healthcare of our people. Because I, for one, have benefited from NHIF when my daughter had meningitis. She accumulated a bill of more than 2 billion.
Wow.
And they managed to pay for us at least 1.2 billion or 1.2 billion.
Wow.
Which was encouraging. So if this is done and the country manages to get rid of the deficit that we have, because we have a deficit of trusted people in manning our institutions in this country. Because what destroys such institutions is lack of trusted personnel. Lack of trust is what has been destroying the NHIF. The corruption between the personnel in the NHIF and the medical sector. If this can be managed, then I think the NHIF can do a very good job for our country.
That's true. Thank you very much, John.
Okay.
Have a lovely day. John, good morning.
Morning. How are you guys?
Good morning.
Fine, thank you.
Yes, Now, it's a good idea for some of us who pay 500 and the city mugas of this world who pay 1,700 can be able to help other people. So it's a good idea. The only thing I'm trying to think about and wondering how it's going to work is which is one extension of the previous John, is how do you implement it? How do you ensure that now this person is over 18, or even if you say 25, that he needs to pay? How do you do that?
How do you
because
enforce
if
it?
you are, yes, how do you enforce it? In law they say the law judges are told don't give orders that you cannot enforce.
Yeah. I think there was
So,
something.
I'm
There
just-
was a conversation that I heard about this. Was
yes,
when you go to access other government services,
yes,
they check your NHIF status.
yes.
So you have various enforcement points.
Okay, you may say that.
Unaenda Huduma Center, unataka kurenew ID, get ID.
Kwa ID unaambiwa lipa kwanza NHIF.
Yes.
Okay. And how many times do you get ID in a year?
Not many.
Not even many. When the last time you got an ID is when you were 18, unless you lose it.
Yeah.
So even if there are those other, the point is that implementing will be difficult. Yeah, because people, and again, there are people who will argue that I don't have an income.
Yeah.
I cannot afford to pay 500 shillings per month.
Yeah.
And it is possible. It's not actually, you might think 500 is little money, and it's actually possible there's somebody who cannot afford to get 500 per month.
Indeed.
Yes. So, it is good in theory, but putting it into
Practice is where you want to see it.
Yes, I'm not seeing it how it's going to work.
Let's see.
It's
Let's
going
keep
to
the
get
hope
done.
alive, John.
Yeah, let's keep the hope alive. and again, NHIF, I think they just need to change the whole management of NHIF. Because I have, from where I work, I interact a lot with NHIF.
Yeah.
I can tell you that they have just allowed corruption to thrive in that organization. And I can give you an example. Latiff, you apply for surgery or on your knee. You take your pre-authorization forms. They authorize 300,000. My sister there, the same surgery of the knee. They authorize 500,000.
Yeah.
And then you wonder, with that.
What is the threshold? What is the determinant?
Yes, who determines this one should be given 300, who would be given 500?
Yeah.
The same surgery, maybe even the same hospital, even the same doctor. So you wonder, and if you leave those kind of
loopholes,
space, then you are giving room for corruption.
That's very true.
And you have told them severally, please, can you just standardize this so that somebody knows that if it is a knee surgery,
I will
it is
get,
this amount.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So
totally.
that it's not an individual who is deciding.
That's true. Thank you,
Yes.
John.
Thank you.
Lovely day. Lydia in Parklands.
Hello, SpiceFM. Thank you for your good discussion. And hi, Siti, Ndu, and Eric.
Good morning, Lydia.
Lydia, where have you been? We haven't heard from you in a very long time.
I spend a lot of time on the call waiting to get to SpiceFM, but it never happens. Now I wanted to say that I received a WhatsApp of a doctor. She said when she was 16 years old, every time she went to a doctor, she says it's paining here and it's paining there and it's paining there, and he gives her medicine. Eventually, she's told she has so many cancers, so many tumors, she has blood pressure, she has diabetes, and a long list. She wants to go mad. So when she went into her 20s and all, she said, I want to be a doctor so that I can investigate. She wants to investigate herself. And you know what she did? She lived on warm water and natural teas and ate only fruits for a while because she wants to examine what actually can cure all this sickness of hers. And she was completely cured of all the cancers and diabetes and whatever. Because she didn't eat meat, eggs, milk, because she won't know which cured her. And she was done. I myself have never been to doctors for many, many years because my friends,
So,
my friends
Lydia,
want water.
do you pay for
eat,
NHIF?
and I used to pay,
Then you
but I
stopped.
don't care anymore. Fruits, they are my
Are you saying,
friends.
Lydia, that you don't believe you can fall sick and go to hospital?
No, it's more, I cannot count how many years, I think 40 years. I
Okay,
don't want
but
to
do you
receive
believe that you cannot fall sick and go to hospital?
If it happens, it happens.
Okay.
Because many, I notice, as soon as they land into hospital, they die. Every time. As soon as you step into the hospital, you die.
There are many who go into hospital and they come out, Lydia.
The people who carry your bodies, they need your body. Otherwise, they can't make money. So somebody
Lydia, there are people who go to hospital and they come out.
And they come out.
In fact, the vast majority of people who go to hospital actually come out alive.
Lydia, there's some people who go to hospital and need surgical intervention, for example. Something that maybe, fruits or other immunity boosting foods cannot take care of.
It could also be an accident.
Yeah. Our blood cells are like little fish. They prefer fruits, not tablets.
Lydia, this one of yours is extreme.
Yes.
But
And
okay.
even what I want to say, is many doctors who handle you, they don't even know whether NHI will pay them. So even they suffer.
Yeah. Thank you, Lydia. Alan in Kisumu, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Very well.
I think the whole idea is it's a noble approach.
Uh-huh.
Bringing the legislation and enforcing, rather seeking to net that large population that have not been contributing to it.
Yeah.
My problems are only to Eric. We've had issues at NHIF. We are aware of them. Even if we go into the debate of enforceability, which I think you are leaving raised there, the money will be okay. They will get some people on board and the money will be collected. At the end of it, you'll see 5 billion has been scooped and it has been airlifted into some offshore account somewhere. Second thing, which I think this one, as a nation, it should prick our conscience. Let's have a human approach and honesty in how we are doing. The product that we are seeing in terms of corruption, in terms of bad governance and all that, if we are the society, it is as a result of how we have been raised and how we've been made to believe that things are supposed to be done. I mean, honestly, how do you take 5 billion, go and spend it in some useless stuff, and there is somebody in Turkana or wherever they are who cannot even afford a medicine of 100 shillings? It's
Or a meal.
unfortunate.
That's
It's
true.
It's evil.
That's true. That's true.
So I believe if we look ourselves in the mirror as a nation and move forward, the people working at the NHIS there, these people should just look at how people are suffering out here. Cancer is everywhere.
True. Thank you, Alan.
And they should
Thank
you. Have a good day.
You too. Have a lovely day. Dr. Andrew Sule, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
It's good to have you on the show. Thank you for calling in. So we are talking about the NHIF bill, calling for mandatory contribution to NHIF. What is your view on this, Doc?
First of all, I want to thank you for having me in the discussion. I must first of all say that NHIF is the only good thing that has happened in this country in matters healthcare. Secondly, I've been a director of NHIF for 4 years.
Yep.
So I'm quite conversant with what is going on there. NHIF in its original form was based on social protection. The young taking care of the old, the rich taking care of the poor, and the healthy taking care of the sick. In the reform of NHIF, one thing that must change is the focus from the word hospital which is about disease, and replace H with health, which is focusing on health. And that is the basis of my discussion. Curative services is very expensive. Even for great nations like US, they find it very expensive. If we are going to collect money and think that we'll be able to take care of all the 6 people, it's not going to be possible. At the moment, we are operating at about 5 to 6, 7% of the GDP going to health, away from the 15% Abuja. Even that 15% Abuja was underestimation. For us to be able to take care of the sick, we need slightly more than 15%. And that is why I was saying, even if we collect all the money and we don't change the focus from curative to health promotion and health prevention, it's not going to be affordable. That was my beef.
That is actually a very strong point that you raise. And Doc, if you don't mind, let's invite you one of these coming days into the show.
Yes.
So we look at that balance between, and even CT Muga talks about it all the time here. If we don't focus on preventative care and we just focusing a lot on the curative, then we are going to be in a bad place.
Yes.
We'll get in touch with you, Doc, to invite you to the show, and hope we'll accept our invitation.
Thank you for having me. Pass my regards to City Muga and greetings to him from Flo Muga, all the way from Papua New Guinea, listening to his voice.
Dr. Sule, thank you very much, and it's good to hear your voice again. I trust you are well.
I am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Asante, Dr. Muga. Dr. Sule from Muga. Asante, have a good day. You got your greetings from Papua New Guinea.
That is my sister.
All right. Yes. She's watching. So, yes, the issue of spending a lot of focus on curative, which appears to be one of the things that NHIF is an insurer, so it look at paying your bill at a point when you're going to seek care. But UHC, how much attention is being given into?
Actually, it's a very interesting perspective that Dr. Sule has introduced, meaning NHIF to be used for the preventative aspects of healthcare as opposed to the curative.
To the curative.
Yes.
Indeed.
How can that be done, though?
Actually,
so you contribute towards an insurance, and then what does insurance do?
Actually, it can be done. It can be done because what you're asking, first of all, is to be able to have a system that recognizes the basic ailments that actually eventually, upon maturation, take people to hospital.
So what you do then is that it is providing for things like testing, pap smears, it's providing for things like screening, etc. So that people don't go for screening, right? Because they can't afford it. So you end up with things like cancers, heart disease, etc., which land you in hospital for long periods of time, charging what you can't afford. So go for screening and have this card be able to take care of that.
Makes a lot of sense.
Even earlier, things like malaria, things like diarrhea, things like pneumonia, those are things that any layperson can actually be taught and they can be able to diagnose. And the attention that is required for them, even medically, is not as complicated as people imagine. And there are others that you can look at.
Okay. Interesting discussion. We should have it with Dr. Andrew Sule in the studio. So, City, today's proverb.
A stranger does not skin a goat given as a fine in a chief's camp. Chief's camp?
Goat? No.
Can't just walk in, find a goat that's been tethered there, and decide,
I'm hungry.
Chief is our man, and I'm hungry.
Chief, your goat. Thank you.
Slaughter goat.
Eat goat.
Roast, and then call him for soup.
Head soup.
Head soup.
Isiewu.
It's called isiewu.
Isiewu.
And the tongue?
Ewu.
Ewu.
I can't remember the tongue.
Thank you for tuning into the Situation Room today. Join us again tomorrow morning. We'll be having more conversations. Tomorrow is Judiciary Thursday. That's what the Chief Justice calls them, Judiciary Thursdays. And we'll be having the Chief of Staff in the office of the Chief Justice who will be here, one of the women that we're celebrating this week. Good morning and have a lovely day. It's now 10 a.m.